like to bring this special meeting of the Council of Fundy Albert to order. It's Friday, December. No, it's not. Hang on.
Thursday, January.
Yeah, here we go. It's Thursday, January 2nd, 2025. We're at the Steve's House Museum. Just for those of you who are wondering why I am the chair, I think most of the room know, but Mayor Richon tendered his resignation last week. And that was effective December 31st. So we're now January 1st. So in accordance with the procedural bylaw, the deputy mayor, which I currently am until that renewal period comes up actually at the next regular council meeting on January 7th. Until then, I will be assuming the duties and obligations of the mayor, which includes chairing the meetings. We're here tonight as a special meeting. We had an agenda circulated in advance. I am proposing that there be several amendments to the agenda for which I would look for your concurrence. I think it would be in our interest to focus the meeting on the budgets and their approval. I also believe that it might be useful to move the acceptance of the resignation of the mayor right really to the beginning, just in front of budget deliberations. We get that out of the way. And then we do the budget deliberations as laid out. And that we move items number 8, which is a resolution to appoint a temporary second council bank signatory, and item 9, resolution to appoint the clerk and deputy clerk to a subsequent meeting, and not address it here now. And I would, per common practice, I would recommend that we insert an item just in front of the closed session, which would be an opportunity, a short opportunity for members of the public to make any statements or questions. But I would ask that those be limited to subjects that are on the agenda tonight, which is really the resignation of the mayor, which there's really not much to discuss there, but and the budget. So is there agreement for those changes?
Yes.
Okay. So
I'm sorry, who was that? There was 3 people. Councillor Coates and Councillor Jonah. Okay.
But I think we need unanimity there. Yeah, very good. So we'll accept, I'll take a motion.
All in favor?
Yeah, I'll take a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those against, nay. And I vote aye, so a motion carried unanimously. So we're into the next one, which would be for a resolution accepting the resignation of the mayor. This is a formal process that's required under
Conflict of interest.
conflict of interest. Thank you there, Madam Clerk. Yes. Is there any conflict of interest declarations for tonight? No. There being none, we can move on to the next item, which would be resolution accepting the resignation of the mayor. As I mentioned, this would be a formal requirement under the Local Governance Act. Is someone prepared to read that motion?
I can read that for you. Whereas Robert Rochelle has submitted a letter of resignation from the position of mayor of Fundy Albert effective December 31st, 2024, and whereas the Council of Fundy Albert has reviewed and considered this resignation, now therefore be it resolved by the Council of Fundy Albert as follows. The Council hereby accepts the resignation of Robert Rochelle as mayor of Fundy Albert effective December 31st, 2024. Number 2, the Council hereby declares the position of the mayor vacant pursuant to Section 51B of the New Brunswick Local Government Act. Number 3, the Council expresses its appreciation to Robert Rochelle for his many years of service and contributions to the community. Number 4, the deputy mayor shall act in the place of the mayor, and while so acting, the deputy mayor possesses the powers and shall perform the duties of mayor pursuant to Section 48(4) of the Local Government Act. And number 5, the council directs the clerk of Funny Albert to take all necessary steps to ensure that the commissioner, the Department of Local Government and Elections New Brunswick be notified so they can begin the process to fill the vacancy for mayor of Funny Albert. So moved.
Seconded by Councillor Land. Is there any discussion on that motion?
I did have a statement I'd like to make.
Yes, please.
So members of council, staff and residents, today we address a significant and solemn moment. The council has accepted the resignation of our Mayor, Robert Rochon. On behalf of the entire administration, I would like to express our deep gratitude for Mayor Rochon's dedicated service and leadership to Fundy Albert and to the village of Hillsborough prior to that. During the mayor's tenure, the community has seen growth and development. His vision and commitment have been instrumental in driving numerous initiatives that have positively impacted the lives of our residents. From infrastructure improvements to community programs, Mayor Rochon has worked tirelessly to make our municipality a better place for all. While we are saddened by Mayor Rochon's departure, we respect his decision and wish him all the best in his future endeavors. His legacy of service and dedication will continue to inspire us as we move forward. As we transition through this period, I want to assure our residents and staff that the administration remains committed to maintaining the stability and continuity of its operations. We will work closely with council to ensure that the priorities and projects initiated under Mayor Rochon's leadership continue to progress smoothly. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Anybody else? You know, I would certainly just like to, as I said, in a number of media engagements I had in the last few days since Mayor Rochon's resignation, to thank him again for his service and dedication to the community. I know he put in his resignation letter that he intends to continue serving the community in other ways. I have no doubt about that. So thank you, Mayor Rochon. So could I have I guess it's time for the vote. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, now on to budget deliberations, which is really the main focus for having this meeting in the first place. So I just would like to make just a few comments, and then certainly everyone is going to have an opportunity to speak what all the things that they need to say. And as we work towards seeking a budget that we can all agree to, and that please is open to also especially our members of the key members of the staff who are here tonight. So how did we get here where we're at? I don't know, umpteenth budget meeting. How did we get here? Well, how we got here is there's been a series of proposals, initially from administration and then back and forth with the council, in terms of trying to reach consensus or broad agreement on two budgets. There's the general operating budget and there's the utility budget, and they are linked in that certain resources are shared between the two. And up until now, we've really not been able to have a complete meeting of minds. And so tonight is really the night to try and to do that. So that's how we got here. Where are we, in fact? Well, what we do know is we do have no audited financial statements for 2023 like we're supposed to have. They're coming, we hope as soon as we can, but in fact, they will not be here in time, as far as we can tell. So you're going to see later that I'm proposing an amendment to any kind of budget resolution approval, that we just acknowledge the fact that the audited financial statements that we're supposed to have, we don't have. We also don't have any work plans that will actually back up the budget for what we're committing money to. And we know that there's reasons for that. And we know that the work plans are coming. There's an intention on the part of administration, they've committed to that, to build work plans that are congruent with the budget that we end up approving. And we also know that there's sort of competing proposals that are before us. And the proposals include fundamental elements such as what are the tax rates for the different subunits. We know that there's proposals where the tax rates are either the same, exactly the same as last year, or that they're merged into common tax rate for only LSD areas and another one for former villages, or even other combinations. So there's competing proposals on that. And linked to that, there are sort of competing proposals about expenditures. Is the expenditure, all of the proposals we have, the expenditures are considerably greater than last year. It's just really a question of how much greater. Is it more than our cost of assessment if our tax rates had stayed the same, or is it beyond that? And we also have a number of open questions about the various proposals that we're going to get to. Councillor Elderkin did send in some recently in the last couple of days, which we're going to need to discuss tonight and have answers. So what do we need to achieve? Well, what we need to achieve is we need to agree on tax rates for the 8 different subunits. It's a fundamental area that an agreement needs to be found, or at least a majority of the agreement. I hope that we have a consensus among council and administration. And also how things are shared. How they're shared, especially among, when I say things, I mean expenses and revenue are shared among the former villages. This is a fundamental question that is different in some of the different proposals. And we need to finally agree on the budgets themselves. Certain aspects are set. For instance, the equalization grant was set by the province, but the revenue and the expenses are something that are in our control and are in part of the competing proposals. And finally, if we can achieve some form of consensus on the 2 budgets, then we need to take action tonight to actually approve these via a resolution, or 2 resolutions. There's one for each budget. We have draft resolutions for that, and hopefully we can get there. So at this point, I think it's just time to let's get to work and do it. So does anybody have anything that they want to say as an opening thing before we get started?
I can start that off.
Councillor Ward Russell, go ahead.
Thank you. So just as we continue to navigate our way through this budget process, it's important to understand that the first budget presented to council is approximately a $7.2 million budget. As you can understand, this was not accepted by council, and we continue to advise and ask administration to make appropriate changes as council has directed a 0% increase for our 2025 tax rate. So I'm hoping tonight that we can actually get to that point. So I'm looking forward to the discussions.
Anybody else want to? Yeah. Please.
Oh, no.
1.5. I've got the highest tax rate of 0.1281. Which is on going with the LSDs under 0.6642. I look at that over 3 years and it's 0.1981. That's heavy. I can't support that motion on that, or if there is a motion.
If I understand correctly, Councillor Coates, you're quoting the numbers that were in the original, our
Yeah.
first budget proposal meeting?
Yes,
Yes. Okay.
yes, on
Right.
Yep.
So since then, of course, we've had a number of different proposals, which we'll talk more
Not
Like
tonight, yes.
tonight. I'm hoping that all of us have the spreadsheets that have been provided by administration, the treasurer, and our chief administrative officer over the last really several days, because we're going to need those. Well, if you had something to say, yes.
So I did. So
Thank you.
as we meet today to find out what we need to do for our final deliberations for the budget of 2025, I'd like to first acknowledge the time and effort that everyone has taken so far. So we've been at this for a while. We've had quite a few meetings on it, and we're down to obviously the crunch time. And it's not easy, these decisions, and it's really difficult in trying to balance the needs of the municipality with the realities of our financial situation. So as your Chief Administrative Officer, my role is to underscore the importance of long-term planning and sustainability. So the administration team deeply understands how today's decisions shape the future and what they're able to do and work projects that they can take on. And our dedicated treasurer has meticulously provided the information you've requested with clarity and detail and many different versions of what you've been asking for. So I'm confident that these insights will help guide you towards an informed decision. This budget process has been driven by our commitment to make responsible decisions that serve the best interests of the entire municipality, of course, not just your individual wards. So the 2025 budget was crafted with a focus on addressing rising costs, including inflation and fixed expenses, while ensuring the continued provision of essential services to our residents. I deeply respect Council's strong desire to avoid raising taxes, given the pressures that our residents face today. However, as we approach the final stages of this budget process, I urge you to consider the long-term implications of your choices and the necessity of a modest tax increase, as we have been recommending. So the current disparity in our tax rates across the wards creates an imbalance that affects the fairness and equity in our municipal services. By implementing a modest tax increase, we can ensure that all the wards contribute equitably to the funding of essential services and infrastructure improvements where applicable, and that will promote a sense of fairness and unity. And then the cost of living has been steadily increasing, affecting everything from basic goods and services to the operational costs of our municipality. Maintaining the current tax rate while appealing may not provide the necessary resources to keep up with those increases. A modest tax adjustment will enable us to sustain essential services, which are vital to the well-being of our community, and to fund our roads, our public buildings, and other infrastructure that require ongoing maintenance and upgrades. So deferred maintenance, reduced funding for critical services, and a lack of investment today can create a snowball effect, one that may ultimately result in much larger financial burdens in years to come. Such a sudden and substantial increase could place a heavier burden on our residents in the future and could disrupt essential services and infrastructure projects in the interim. So the administration understands that any tax increase is a difficult decision. However, we implore you to consider the broader impact of your decision. The long-term benefits of a modest adjustment far outweigh the short-term challenges. By equalizing tax rates and addressing the rising cost of living, we can ensure a fair, equitable, and sustainable future for all residents.
Thank you. On that, and I do want to make sure that we maintain clarity on certain terms. So we talk about modest tax increases or modest increase in tax rates. They're certainly different, right? So we know that all of the budget proposals that are before us are a significant increase in taxes. Meaning if we compare the total budget amounts over the last number of years, like since amalgamation, they have clearly been rising steadily. So the first year of Fundy Albert, the total budget was $5,179,000 and change. Last year, it was $5,985,000, which was in itself a 15.5% increase in taxes. This year, of course, there's already all our proposals are in the order of at least 10% greater taxes. So we already know that our budget proposals, even the smallest one, is increasing well beyond the rate of inflation. And there are reasons for that. We know that. And you've just explained a number of them. So so that's different than the tax rates themselves. So the tax rates have been changing also. As you know, in the first year, we had 8 different tax rates. Last year, we converged some of them. And this year this is where there's really competing proposals. There's administration is proposing that really well, and then I'm going to ask some questions actually, because I'm not entirely convinced or sure what administration is now proposing, but it's somewhere between either 2 tax rates, one just for the LSD areas and one for the former villages, or more to somehow differentiate. So maybe that is a good segue into some questions that have been asked by other councillors, and some of them are on my own. Is that the last meeting we had, which was in this room on the 27th of December, we made a decision as council to direct administration to go and see if they could put a proposal together that was assuming 0 tax rate increase from last year. Okay. And we have a fixed amount of the equalization grant, and there's some maneuvering room allowed in revenue, and from that out would fall a total expenditure amount. But what we got back from administration is, and these are questions really for you guys, under council's requested proposal, the first tab on the spreadsheet, what I see is the tax rates that are being proposed for most of the LSD areas. This is the 0.5745 number. Is not even the same as last year. Is there a reason for that?
There.
Okay. What's the reason for that?
So in trying to create,
And that's actually what's on being projected here. So that's good. And
in my process of doing cuts and trying to achieve council's requests, I had to essentially kind of make a tax rate. And there's certain cuts, I believe council may want to put back in. So really it should be 0.5799 for the 4 other LSDs. It shouldn't be what's listed. It's just more or less, I was using numbers to try to determine how much extra was shared and what would be the former villages contributing.
Jillian, sorry, take it back a step to the beginning of we cannot get it to the number that it was last year exactly, because there's certain lines that are more expensive than they were last year.
Yeah.
So that means that each of these numbers have to be, you can't just use the same numbers and tax rates as there was last year. It doesn't give us enough money to pay for all the fixed costs on that.
So I have to, sorry if I'm interrupting.
I just need to understand each step of the way here. So if we use the numbers from last year, we can calculate it out, the last year's tax rates by this year's tax base, which is provided by the province, which will give us an amount for a warrant. And that number is, you're saying not enough?
Well, you have to take an effect when you make all those changes, what is shared and what is the local cost. So in order to keep the former municipalities of Hillsborough and Riverside, Alberta at the tax rate they were at, I had to keep share costs lower, because every time I increased share cost or local costs amongst the 3 villages, it changed. So to be able to keep it in what council had requested, I had to make the prescribed.
So if I was to understand correctly, then are you saying that it's actually impossible?
It would be impossible to get to the exact numbers. You don't put the tax rate in, you put all the numbers in everywhere else, and it spits out a tax rate for you.
That's right. That's normally how it's
It has
done.
to go through and put in the adjustments where you're asking for the adjustments to go. And then the other line items have increased fixed costs, like some of those are increased. So the balance is to try to get it as close to, and it's like I said, it's not as easy as just saying, oh, well, we want this one to be 1.56.
I get that, yeah.
It's the number that's at the end. So she has to do a lot of manipulation of the line items in order to try to get it to where it needs to be. Keeping in mind that there are shared costs, there are covered element costs, there are, right? So
Right,
it's a big process. It's not just as simple as saying, these are the tax rates and calling it a day.
right. When we actually, on some level at least, know that because the last 2 years, and like even like the first year's budget, which was prepared in predominantly by the province, there is each year had manipulation involved, right? It wasn't simply just put in the numbers and what spit out at the bottom is what actually we got. There was always the final step which is manipulation. But if I understand it correctly, the manipulation that's needed to maintain last year's tax rate is too much. Is that what I'm hearing you
Well,
say?
not too much. I mean, I've been able to figure out a good majority of it. It just depends. I've given council a list of recommended between yourselves and anything I've been able to find touched within to achieve that rate that you're looking for. So there is, when we get through to the end, there is an amount that council can bring back in at their discretion.
Okay, so just staying with that, if you don't mind staying with that table right there. Here's another question that I have, and I'm sure others do have. The numbers that are over on the left, it's the rows 19 to 22. So what these numbers are is these are tax rates required to pay for specific things that are in the column to the left. Right? So I get that part. And then the number under the column F is actually the amount of dollars to pay for those certain things.
It's what the extra tax rate calculations produce. I can't get the exact number of what those costs are, but that is as close as I can.
Yeah, okay. But here's my real question. Is those, like for instance, in the box in green there and the ones below it, so yeah, like, well, no, it's bring it. The ones at the bottom, yeah, but those four.
Yeah.
Are those included or to be added to the numbers above in the corresponding? So take Alma, for example.
They're not to be added.
They're already included.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
It's more or less what I used in my other table to determine where the revenue was coming from to contribute to the expenses.
Okay, so that's an important thing, that those additional tax rates to pay for specific items, council, that are in only one particular subunit are actually included in the tax rates that are shown above, which are used to calculate a warrant for the particular proposal. So I think I understand, although I'm not fully understanding, but I believe I understand why you're saying that the numbers that you have there for tax rate in column B is not, it's close, and in some cases exactly the same. So for instance, Alma Village, Hillsborough Village, and Riverside Albert Village is exactly the same as last year.
As well as Hillsborough LSD.
Okay, as well as Hillsborough LSD, but the other ones are different.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing is they have to be different. Is that what you're saying? They have to be different
I can.
to make for the system to work.
To make my other system work, they need to be there. But in the process that council would like to go with, and that's with the former tax rates, I can increase them, but it just gives us a bit more availability in shared items that could be brought back off the cut list.
Okay. I do note from my calculations that the difference between using exactly last year's numbers and this proposal, which is called council's requested proposal is $13,216. You would get more, 13,000 more than this if you used last year's numbers exact. Not a bit. So whether that comes into play, who knows? Go
Can I
ahead.
just ask one clarifying question just while we're on that topic? So if those former, like it's just the Elm LSD, the Harvey LSD, the Hopeful LSD, and the Covered LSD, right?
Mhm.
So if their tax rate went back up to where it was last year, my understanding is it's additional money that would go into a shared
Service.
service, right?
Mhm.
So I'm thinking that's a good thing, because some of our infrastructure that is shared needs to have repairs. So to me, that is a good thing to bring them back up to the tax dollar that they contributed to last year.
Mhm.
It would change our problem solving to what we can spend it on as opposed to what we can cut.
So the other question that I
Thank you
would
for
have
clarifying.
thank you, on this table or this tab is over in the top right-hand corner are adjustments to the revenue that administration is proposing. We had proposed some, but we can talk about that in a minute, that had to do with the movement from reserves. But instead, I believe I understand what you've done here is that from your most recent proposal that you shared with council, you're making two adjustments on the revenue side. One is increasing the operating reserve revenue. That was because you had mentioned at our last meeting about the WorkSafe NB credit or a refund. So all you're doing is really sharpening the pencil in the sense that this is the more accurate number.
Mhm.
And the other one is taking out some revenue.
From the utility fund transfer.
Right. And this is because the truck is going to be bought later in the year. No? So what's this then? I don't understand.
So when council decided to revert some of salaries, cost of living increases, and also trying back when we hire our superintendent, those amounts that we were billing the utility department lessens.
Okay.
So that's by that amount.
Okay.
That makes perfect.
If I may,
Yes.
just to go back a second, we were looking at the rates a minute ago, and you said that, correct me if I'm wrong, you said we couldn't use the exact rates. But then Councillor Ellicott spoke up, and she said if we went with the old rates, we'd have a surplus. A little bit, correct?
Well, there is a little bit of a surplus here, and that within that 69,878,
Yes.
there is a little bit of a surplus there.
So you don't have to go to the points of 5799, you can go with 5745 to get that surplus.
It's a little bit small, quite a bit smaller. If we didn't increase them back up, you would only have about $1,900 in shared funds that you could put back in after these recommended cuts. But if we put them back to where they were at 0.5799, you would have the availability of around 15,000 to put back in.
But you could do that.
Yes.
So that would give it a little bit extra to
Yeah.
jiggle with at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And then the rates would stay the same as of yet last year.
Yep.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So what we're seeing is that administration is suggesting that a more accurate revenue number is this 864,946 number. So what I'm suggesting is this, I think, is a good starting point for our deliberations tonight, is use this, because what was different from the proposal from council from the 27th is we were talking about moving money from some reserves. And we may still need to do that, but this is not doing that. The only move from a reserve here has to do with the WorkSafe, and that's just getting the accounting more exact. So if we use the 864,946 number, at least it's somewhat stable. Are people agreeing that that's a good place for us to start, at least with the deliberations? So we can at least stabilize two numbers completely. One is the equalization grant of 213,000 and change, the one provided by the province, and the other is this revenue number. So really, what this does is helps us, because now we know, depending on the tax rates we choose, we can easily calculate how much money would be raised from our taxpayers. Okay, and you take that money and you add the revenue and you add our equalization grant, and that's the number that's the total budget. And then we can then look at all our expenditures that we're trying to do and say, does this work for us or not? Right? So the numbers are different now, though. This is where we start to have, I'll say, disagreements, or where we have not yet achieved that a kind of consensus, because the council's recommended proposal here that we're showing here actually is raising $5,547,437 as a warrant. Would you agree with that, Jillian? That what I've done there is just summed all your warrant numbers there. So that's just column F from 4 to 11. That sum, I believe, is $5,547,000.
Yep. Okay.
And you see, there's the equalization grant next, and there's the revenue next, and you come up with a number of $6,625,910. Okay. But what would happen if we kept it exactly as last year? So this is Jillian's understanding of what we were asking for. Well, let's just stay here there. You've got the 606,25,910, but the number below that is what you're predicting the expenses are.
That's based off the expenses in column 3.
So I actually have a question of that number. Is that number the same as the expenditure column number? I think it is. Yes, it is. Right, so just so everyone knows, so just so we can keep track, this is where we're going to get there.
Yeah.
If we add all these, add that, we get 625, 6,625,910. But Jillian's got a number right below that. What that number is if you go to the expenditure tab, go all the way to the bottom. It is that number.
I think it's just.
It is that number.
It's linked from the, like it's the expenditure page.
So what that's saying is it works. Go back to your council recommendation tab. If we have total money coming in from the warrant, the revenue, and the grant of 6,625, and our total expenditure is equal to 6,556, we're golden by 70 grand, but there's a problem. And the problem, at least in my view, there's a problem. The problem is the 6,556 number is assuming these cuts, correct?
Correct.
Correct. And these aren't the cuts that we asked for. So we need to now have a discussion about the cuts, or maybe we can delay it in a bit. But, so we sent to you, really it was me, sent to you, and it was concurred with, the email of certain cuts that some of these, I'll say, well, you can even see where it refers to me. Some of them you've accepted and some of them you have not accepted, and others you've got brand new cuts that have never been discussed.
No, these are just recommendations, Deputy Mayor.
The recommendations you made didn't add up to enough to get the number that you're looking at.
Right, but we already see that we have 70,000 more than we needed, even, right? We saw that on the first, right here. There was the number, right there. That number was 70,000 extra we had. So there's actually $70,000 in cuts here we don't even need to make this work. If I ever say anything you don't agree with, please speak up.
Theoretically, I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor, I didn't want to interrupt you. But in theory, when I take those tax rates and divide by what the actual expenses are, it only that revenue only contributes to certain subunits. And it also inserts an amount that the former villages have to pay of 1 LSD. So it's not, there's a little bit more math to it than just saying we have an extra 70,000 we can put back out there. Council has to decide, you know, so in the grand scope of it, there's $18,859 that is extra revenue that is brought in from Hillsborough Village. There's $85,834 brought in from the Alma Village. There's $10,895 brought in from the Riverside Albert Village. 15,124 of that is shared, also coming in. But the former villages also have to take up the cost of $47,618 where we're not raising the rate in Hillsborough LSD.
Okay, so I didn't actually understand any of that, but what I think would make it really easy to understand is if you could show us, just repeat what you said, but show us using the tabs where these numbers are that you're referring to.
So they're on my notes, unfortunately.
But okay, so let me just ask you this, because the 864 number, the revenue number, comes from this tab, doesn't it? If we go there, are we going to see?
Yeah. It should directly, actually.
It's a direct link, but not instant.
Yeah.
There it is. So I get it, right? We see that this tab equals that number. And the 213 number is just the equalization graph. That one's never in question. So are you saying there's numbers that we're not seeing here?
So for the rates, they're automatically plugged in, but if I go by what the summary actually gives us, the former villages excluding their extra that they pay for former debt is actually 1.3497. And the LSDs minus any extra local services is 0.5745.
Right, so this is a very interesting table, isn't it? Because this is the theoretical. That if we were doing no monkeying around and we just let the system tell us what the tax rates should be, depending on how we had already attributed, whether it's shared or in one or more subunits. In fact, this is the number that should be.
LSDs.
And that's the number that should be, and that's actually one of your proposals, or it maybe is the proposal. So that's, in a way, this is the fundamental disagreement or where breakdown we have right now between the council and the administration that we need to resolve. Because, either, so what we're seeing on this is an important tab in my view, because what it's saying is if we collapse all of the LSDs to one common tax rate and collapse all the former villages to one common tax rate, which means that all of the shared services by everybody, we share them all, like the library is a good one and the rink is a good one and fire is a good one. We apply the inside outside rate and we get this row. That's this row here. And you'll notice the difference between the two is the inside outside rate. The villages are 10%. Well, these guys are only 90% or whatever it is, right? That's the difference. So all the other numbers are what's called local services. But what we did last year and all the other years is the local services were actually tallied up by individual LSD and or village. And this year, the proposal here is not that. They're collapsing all the villages to one, right? And all the LSDs to one. I guess minus those four things that you showed. One is the depth, these ones, minus these things,
Yep.
Everything else has been collapsed.
Yep.
So that obviously, if we go back to that tab, and you guys correct me if the administration correct me if I'm wrong, this fundamentally is what administration is proposing. Because it is beautiful in some ways, in that it's simple. It removes the ability to financially track expenditures and even revenue according to subunit, which is what administration has been hoping for. And it's a lot easier. But I think that, and this is where I'd like you guys to speak now, is we've, I believe, felt that this is politically very, very difficult, because what it does is this is the radically different tax rates that were in the original budget proposal that came, I can't remember even the date that we did it, but in this room in November, right? And they're radically different from 2024 and 2023. There's a reason, but they're radically different.
Well, it eliminates, so a lot of services that we have are all the same. It's just when you apportion it by tax assessment and you split it up through the calculator, it takes me a lot longer. It takes me 2 or 3 days to adjust budgets versus one afternoon. So in some ways it does simplify my life, but it's not just about me. This is just to show what, because the initial I got from council is that they wanted lower tax rates, if not the same. And when I look at the summary, when we treat everybody as a separate entity, almost on their own, there's a lot of tax rates that are LSDs, I think primarily, and smaller villages couldn't afford. Because if, Linda, if you want to go to the slide that shows where we separate it by subunit. Yeah. So as you can see, Alma would go down substantially. Alma LSC would go down some, but Harvey LSC would have to increase to 0.6292. Hillsborough LSC would have to increase to 0.5997. Hillsborough would have to increase to 1.4037, and Hopewell LSC would have to increase to 0.6222. So, you know, I knew these numbers are not acceptable to council, as they want to stay at the same tax rate, if not lower. So this is where I took it upon myself to see what it would look like if we shared those shared services among the village centers and the former LSCs. And that is where I come up with the recommendation to collapse them, minus the extra tax rate for services, local services that are not the same.
What tab are you on?
This is just a tool that she was using in order to calculate.
So, you know, a key role here, and maybe if you could just zoom in one notch. It's the change, you know, this row changed from last year. This isn't tax rate, right? So this is, remember, even if you keep the tax rate the same, everybody's going to be, their tax bill, all of us are residents of Fundy, Alberta, and everybody in the back is, I think. Everybody's tax bill is, even if you keep the rate that's the same, is going up in the order of 12%, depending on exactly how you're assessed, your assessed property changes, which is driven by the province, not us. So this is in addition to that. This is the one that I think causes alarm to the residents and the taxpayers, our constituents, and therefore council members. I think this is partly Council Coates there would be
12%.
Yeah, there's a 12% increase in the tax rate, plus all their assessments that went up. It's a huge jump. So for me, where the merits of it are beautiful, and of course where I live, it goes down 15%. But it's, up until now, the council, I think, has felt that this was not tenable. Are we prepared to change, or we still think it's not tenable?
So just the old guy here to catch up. We collapsed the tax rates. All the former villages, we $1.34. Is that what that one's here?
Yep, they'd be,
Straight straight across the board. The same as the LSDs would be. Same.
well, they would be where no decision has been made to switch the former village's debt to a shared debt. It would be an extra on top, but it would be 1.3497 plus, depending on what village it is. So for Alma's long-term debt and the last transfer to the Hillsborough general reserve, it would be an extra 0.0257 on top of that. For Hillsborough, it'd be an additional 0.0295. And for Riverside, Alberta, it'd be additional 0.0084.
That's over above the $1.34.
Yeah, and also for Coverdale, it would be an additional 0.002. Yeah, I can't remember if I missed the zero, not 20 for their streetlights and mosquito control that the other LSDs do not currently contribute to.
So. I might have lost myself here somewhere. Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
So the summary that I have in the general, the page 4 tab.
Mhm.
I like to keep things simple up here. So that tax rate you have identified right there is 1.3497 for the village center. That's the amalgamation of all 3 former villages.
Correct.
But that local tax rate below that's there is 1.4023. It's not the tax rate for all 3 former villages.
You lost.
Right here.
Yeah, here,
In the 2025 local tax rate is 1.4023.
Okay,
Is that, would that be based on,
that's without the community funding grant.
That's the community funding grants, the 213,000,
okay,
which we've never been using this part of the spreadsheet, right?
No.
No,
I tried to eliminate
Yeah.
anything that would confuse anybody.
yeah.
but now that we're talking about it, it's heightened the level of confusion just a tad bit. So when I was reviewing this, it was my impression that if we collapse these 3 former villages, that we would all be paying this 1.4023.
Oh, no.
So that is key information, I think, that needs to be shared, and the same with the former LSDs. So for me, if we were to base everything that's in here in this portal, I call it the portal, I don't think it's the portal, everything you've got keyed in here, to collapse these to 2 rates includes which recommendations at the beginning, the council's or yours or a combination thereof.
Combination.
So I guess at the
Yeah.
end,
But actually, just to be very clear to answer that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Jillian,
Mhm.
that because it is the spreadsheet here, and so for instance, that tab 4 summary is coming from this spreadsheet.
correct,
It's using this revenue, which we know is the 894 number, and it's using this expenditure, which I think is the, let's go. It's the 5 million.
correct.
It's actually the number that's in, this is the key one, Councillor Elderkin, it's the one that's under council requested proposal, correct? Because this is the 6556 is the council requested number.
That's for the
Right there.
expenditures, yeah.
Okay,
So
so
if you
that,
go, just to confirm that, if you go over there,
Yep.
there's the 6556,
Yep.
which is, if you want to know what cuts that is, it's these cuts. Am I correct?
Yes.
These cuts here.
so. So my question remains, if we were to go with this council's request proposal, there's 69,000 technically we have to put back in,
Mhm.
plus maybe a little bit more if we bring up our LSDs to where they were before.
Correct.
And our tax rates at the end of the day would be what again?
She's gonna have to do it. She's gonna have to load it in, right?
Well, I think I got it lower here. Just want to double check, I'm sure I have enough.
Because
I don't mean to put,
No, I-
it wasn't a question to make to put you on the spot, but now that we know that these aren't the actual tax rates.
right, because they would be, these ones, it's, she said, it's a combination between the 2 tabs.
Right.
So flip them back up to.
Can I just ask a question here, Jillian? These, if we go to treasurer's recommendation now for a minute,
Mhm.
this one. So is this, the 1.4 is what? Because I thought it would have been the gen summary number plus the ALMA number. But it looks like it's more than that.
And that's because it is, in order to generate that, I have to take, to keep Hillsborough LLC from taking a huge jump, I put my recommendation at only putting them up 1.5 to start to gradually bring them up with everyone else. And if you can see lower, it shows kind of what the effect would be on a tax rate, just so council had a good idea, but this is with less cuts than the proposed on the other sheet.
But I think, Councillor Elvican, I think this helps explain the question. So if we go to general summary tab, you know, those two rates, like for instance, the villages are 13497. So, but now if you go to the treasurer's recommendation, it's not that. It's that plus these numbers lower down to deal with our debt, plus some other maybe tweaking as
Because the
necessary.
expenses are not cut the same amount, and so because there were some that in my mind probably shouldn't be cut.
Well, this is another question. I didn't understand why you had a different list than our list, when our list wasn't even our list to begin with. You know, in other words, the council proposal list of cuts. If you go there, the total 210
Mhm.
or 201, these weren't actually even what we gave you.
No, but to achieve your rates you want it, those are the cuts you have to make.
But why? You still ended up with a surplus there of
Yeah,
70,000.
but the surplus it only contributes to certain ones.
It's because of the weather.
Shared or not shared, shared or
Okay.
not shared. And it's not my position as treasurer to, I don't have the say in what you guys cut, so I gave you guys multiple different options.
Right. Well, and that part was good.
So
So the treasurer's recommendations are the rate, but as she was saying is the Hillsborough LSD would have to come up a significant amount. So the recommendation is to do it over 2 years instead of over just the one. And then that would change the, you know, some of the village ones in order to supplement that.
Well, I guess what I would say now is, before we talk about, is that, do you think we can live with that or not? Is everybody at least following how I'm mostly following, but I'm not, the part about we couldn't do certain things because it's not according to share. I don't know how that can be shown to us. I guess it can't be.
You can't cut $50,000 out of a paving budget if it's supposed to be shared across, if you're trying to get
Yeah.
money shared across all.
Everybody,
all
yeah.
contributors.
Paving is only the villages.
So you have to kind of take money from one place and from other place, depending on how you want to make those cuts to get the rates where you need them. So if you're trying to get an LSD at a certain rate, you have to pick something that is shared across all, correct? Yeah.
I got you. Is everybody following at least what we've done so far? Because now I think it comes down to at least the next step to me, and I take suggestions from anybody, but it's the political part now. We do need to decide, you know, we can see kind of fundamentally the difference between the treasurer's recommendation the villages are different, but the only reason the villages are different is because of the debt, correct?
correct.
So really now the villages are all the same except for the debt, which Hillsborough have the most relative debt. So you're at one, you have now the highest tax rate. This is in their proposal. You would have the highest tax rate. Alma would be second, because we had more debt than Riverside Albert. And Riverside Albert and so the two of us are greater. No, you would be greater than 2024. Alma's going to be quite a bit less. And Hillsborough is, I think, a little less, but is it less there? What was last year? Isn't it? I thought it was 139.
It was.
It was,
Yes.
Riverside, Albert, and Hillsborough were made the same.
Yeah, so it's slightly less. But now the LSD areas are, it wasn't it last year they were 1.5.
799.
5799.
So it's almost the same.
5361. Those two rates.
But also with last year, the villages did, because we only brought, certain LSEs at a certain amount, so some of their taxes were paid, not their taxes, but some of their tax rate was pushed on to the former villages.
Do we have on one of your tabs somewhere, the graph that shows your proposed rates against last year and the relative difference?
No, I do not.
But we could easily do that if we recess for 2 minutes, but this number is, remember, it's the 60s. This is only, instead of the 201,000 cuts, it's 100 and, is it 65 or?
147.
It's 50,000 less in cuts. Maybe it's time to talk about those cuts. Do you think that would be useful?
Well, sorry.
Yeah, no,
So this summary is based on the expenses that are keyed in here, which is the council's proposal.
Combination.
yeah, but it's not actually our proposal, it's administration's view of our proposal. It's based on this, Councillor, go to the council request proposal tab.
Yep.
And those $201,000 in cuts, it's based on that. And I think what I'm getting from you is that the administrations, you see, just to the right of the red number, it says whether it's shared or local. This matters.
Correct.
Yeah. Do you think it's worthwhile going through this list? I'm thinking it is.
Well, I think it's important that we come to a consensus of whether we're moving forward with the two tax rates. This is where it all boils down to. So we can cut all the expenses we want, but at the end of the day, if we say go back and put all the,
Yeah, I actually think we need to do both, but I'm happy to do the tax rate part first.
I would agree with that. I think you need to determine if you're gonna, as recommended, to do the village and the LSDs, or if we're gonna go back to what we had last year, which was 3 and 2. 3 villages and 2 LSDs.
Yeah.
I think that is your first, and then what you do,
Okay,
those
yeah.
numbers, and then you can, because that's gonna spit that bottom line out of what you've got so-called left, if you have any left.
And then I think why we'll have to come to a thing like the red column table is because as we decide what cuts we do need to make, it will matter whether they're shared or local expenses. Because if we can, it will, what our aiming point, which will be determined by our tax rates, will help guide what kind of cuts we need. Do they need to be shared cuts or local cuts? Local meaning it's really local to the 3 villages or everybody. So floor's over to whoever wants to chime in on.
Yeah, yeah. I think I prefer to have, and I'm not saying that, if we know now that 2026 is going to look like the blended rate, which is 2 rates, the villages and the LSDs, and I think then we mentally know that that's where we're going. But I truly think that with everything that's going on right now, the issue status quo to me would be 3 and 2. Going into 2025, knowing that the long-term vision is the blended rate, is what I call it, of villages versus the LSD rate.
If I may, I would also agree on that. I don't, with where our financials are, we're 2 years behind. We haven't done last year's, we ain't got the year before that. So we really don't know where we sit financially. It could be bigger surplus than what we're imagining. It could be a bigger debt than what we're imagining, right? We haven't got that figured out. So going forward, I'll just play a little cautious, and I think we should have the last year's rate from the 3 and 2 to work at that, in that direction, and make that work. I know it's gonna get blended rate down the road, it's in the works, it's gonna happen, but I think with the blended rates, you have to pick up, like the treasurer said, you have to pick up the past debt to get there, right? So that's gonna be all figured in as we move forward. So as we sit right now, I would like to see us use the 5 rates from the last year, if we can make them work, and move forward until we get these financials, because if we get financials done within the next month, and then they can tackle 2024 financials, we should have them done by September. Then we can sit down and have a real clear view of where we actually are, of all the monies, right? That should be all tidied up. That's my view.
Okay, that's 2. I think we should, this one, I think we need to hear from everybody on, so who wants to go next?
The collapse rate sounds great. It really does. I don't think we're there yet this year. I really don't think that. Something to work towards, and then probably 26, we can do it. But again, like Councilor Lanta, we're really just tossing the line out and hope. We don't know what's going to bite. We don't know what's coming back with our 23. Personally, I like to kind of say what we're looking on our way to doing quite well. Yeah, I think I like to see where the 3 to.
I guess it's my turn. I can absolutely see the importance of the blended rate for paperwork purposes for the administration and for council. It would take out a lot of questioning, I think. But I think I've said it before, I don't think we're just there yet. And, you know, as Councilor Ward Russell said, if we go into this, the sharing of the debt, like this all was a new proposal to us. And
Well, there's no sharing of a debt in our proposal here, is there?
Not a whole debt, no.
not a whole debt, but the sharing of local expenses
Right.
is new for 2025, correct? We didn't do that last year, did we?
For a majority of local costs and transportation. Those are based on like our budget for ditching and culverts, our for paving, those were shared amongst the 3. So each year kind of everybody gets, the more money in the pot, the more work you can get done. So like in this year, we were able to complete the Hillsborough project and not have to hand over that 135,000 back to the government. We were allowed to keep that. So like next year, you know, other parts of the former villages will see work. That's how a good majority of those ones were shared. And a good part of our bills that come in, they don't come in for each separate subunit. When I get a bill from the police, it's one amount every quarter. It's not separated. So in our new contract for animal control, it's another one. It's one bill that comes into the village. It's not exactly shared. But I request, I have taken the time to put it through the government's calculator to calculate what it would be for each. So it's artificially there for some of them, if not most of them.
So like the shared expense, say for snow plowing, for instance, that's a good example.
Mhm.
We know the former village of Hillsborough took a big hike last year,
Mhm.
but that now is shared amongst all the 3 former villages in the calculations.
Yeah.
So what effect? So for me in Riverside, Albert, knowing that we had a sweet deal for snow plowing, now I'm taking on a portion of Alma and Hillsborough. What effect does that have on the former village? That's what I'm not seeing here.
In some ways, it's very minimal because that sweet deal could end tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And we have to bring in a contract and the contract could be triple. And then
Absolutely.
I don't feel that's subunit on its own could handle that.
Correct.
That's where being a part of the village together on its own, we, as a village, we can afford to pay for these expensive items that, in other words, we wouldn't be able to afford. This, for Riverside Outlet, for example, we used to budget $20,000 for paving and padding, for any kind of patching. And we used to cut a deal with DTI for them to do a small portion of Water Street. But in 2023, we padded a whole road and patched Water Street, something we've never been able to do before. So that's where the idea of combining them together. So some years we may see a little bit more work and some may be less in certain areas, but it's to ensure all these areas are treated fairly and the same.
Right, but that paving work that was done in 2023 was allocated for Riverside Albert. Our tax dollar that was included in our tax dollar. It wasn't shared with Hillsborough.
It was done, their budget was done completely different. than how
Correct,
I would-
yeah. So that padding was on the backs of the former residents of Riverside Albert. I guess they're still
Yeah.
residents of Riverside.
Yeah, but I mean, like, if we didn't share costs for the rec center and administration, they probably wouldn't have been able to afford it.
But also going forward, we haven't had a work plan. So in the future, with the director of operations, we'll have a work plan for a 5-year work plan, right?
Mhm.
If a resident comes to me and asks where my tax dollars go, I can send them to that and say, this is what's going to take place. Right?
Yeah. And,
That way,
yeah,
right,
so-
that way you see the fairness across the whole table, right? As we sit right now, we have no idea.
and,
And you just mentioned that Albert has benefited from being part of Fundy Albert already,
Yeah.
which is fine. I'm not arguing that point. But it needs to be planned and fair shared across a timeline. That's all I'm saying.
yeah, and that's where I explained, like Hillsborough this year benefit by having everyone else, is that we were able to share that wealth. So, Ian's very new, and it takes a lot to come in and learn the ropes and create a work plan and trying to do with no budget. So,
That's exactly my point,
yeah,
is that if we stay where we are now, right? We can go forward this year, get this stuff all ironed out, get our tax rates done, get where we are financially by September of 2023 and 2024. Bang, then we're on a new slate.
Yeah.
Then we can maybe put the blended rates together, have a work plan with the director of operations and move forward on a approach that we know where we're going. A 5-year plan. You run your own business.
yeah,
You just can't put a month, you don't know where you're going, right?
No.
And this is what we're doing. You gotta know where we're going. You gotta have the finances. It's the same as putting $10,000 or $15,000 away in a, we'll say a bank account or something, you know, whatever, right? For down the road, you're gonna need that, right? We'll set that up. But as of right now, that's not really in the cards.
and I think that's where it makes it difficult, for both sides of the table. You know, we can't make a work plan without a budget, and you have a hard time accepting a budget without a work plan.
So for this year, that's what I'm
Yeah.
basing my
My-
thoughts on.
Only worry about taking away the blended rates is, well, for time, and since I have it worked out to figure out who pays the extra in the shortfalls and the other portions, where it's split, when you split it amongst the three, there's a big chunk that's being taken on by the other villages. So I don't have the numbers in front of me that determine, you know, who's paying extra for what and what can that be applied to shared or local.
And I would like to make a public statement. The money that went downhill, there was no street specs in Hillsborough last year for that money. That was shared by all of us, and that actually should have been a DTI road. I think the government kind of stepped ahead of their bounds, and that's what we fix it on.
Well, we gotta keep it on track, but
Yeah.
you had a comment?
Well, I'll strengthen what Jillian said about, it's hard to put a work plan in place if it's not equal across the board. So if one village is paying $1.56 and the other one's paying $1.39 per 100,000 assessed, how do you distribute the work that needs to be done throughout the villages if everybody's paying a different level of service technically? So yes, we're planning on putting a work plan in place, but it'll be interesting when it comes down to what projects we're able to do this year, based on if we don't blend them through.
But isn't it based on your tax base? So wouldn't that be fairly just beautification? So $20,000 budget based on Alma's tax base, they have have this much money that goes into beautification.
It's all in one big bucket, though. That's the amalgamation is saying that we have a beautification budget and we're going to distribute it among the three, the villages, I guess, because the LSDs don't pay into the beautification.
I just picked that.
So, yeah, so, but it is a good example because it is the villages that pay into that. So then we would say, okay, well, out of the beautification budget, this year we're going to do the gazebo or fix the roof at the Lookout. We're going to do the gazebo in Alma, and we're going to do something
The gazebo's not beautification.
No, no.
Am I not correct? The gazebo's a shared number, not a local number.
No.
It's
Or,
shared among everybody.
yeah, sure. That's
park.
a shared one.
It's a bad example, sorry.
But like, yeah, because like beautification, like, we just ensure that everybody pays their a portion to their assessed value, but everybody that pays into that local cause has hanging baskets, has banners, and has Christmas lights of some form. So,
Which Riverside Albert does not have at the moment.
I can't get my head around why that, Ward 5 is, they're saying is a 15% increase.
that's if we went with what the table shows us. That's not what it's getting. They're,
Just explain to Ward 5 and Councillor Coase, what is being proposed for?
what's
Ward
being
5?
proposed, is your request of council, and that is the 0.5361 to remain the same.
Even in the treasurer proposal?
Not in my recommendation, no.
No,
My
so
rec-
that's what I mean, in your recommendation, what is it? Is it?
It's a 1.5 increase. So in the scheme of things, according to local government's calculators that they've provided, so in Hillsborough LSD, say if we increase it by 0.015, someone that has a house valued at 250,000 would see an increase of $38 in their tax bill.
So 0.15, which is even more than the original proposal that Councillor Coates was quoting from.
No, it's still less than what the original was.
The original one that was provided to council the very first day?
Yeah. It's still less.
Okay, I thought it was 0.1281 here. No?
That would be with your, I'm not sure what would be with the,
It said it was at 53 cents, 0.5361.
And that's what I'm even looking at the online version of that.
And you're
I think that
recommending 0.5361, and you're for the Hillsborough LSD, it's 0.5511.
Okay, so the latest proposal is going down?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Councillor Coates, what they're saying. What is it now? Instead of 5.361, what is it? Just to help Councillor Coates?
under my recommendation, it's 0.5511.
5.511?
Or no.
Well, that's more.
That's going on.
Hmm?
That's what's wrong.
That's what's here.
That's right, I didn't hear that.
That's what's here written.
Yeah, 0.5511. That's my recommendation, but
Yes, so it's even
you're-
worse than,
Goes from 0.5361.
5361 was what your recommendation.
To 5.511.
oh, I see it, this is last year.
1.4.
I see originally it was 6.642.
Well, no, that was. That was,
That's too many.
that was without any of the cuts. that we
Yeah.
did.
So here's what's happening there, Councillor Coates. This one, instead of 6.642, it's 5, I can't see from here, 5.561?
Yeah.
They're saying 5.561.
5511.
Sorry.
Oh, 5.511. What's that difference here? So instead of this, it's actually 0.015.
Yeah.
So it's actually almost 1/10 of an increase of what originally was being. So instead of originally proposing almost 13 cents, now it's 1.50 cents.
But if we kept the two rates for LSDs, then it would stay the same. If we go back to,
Yeah, that's right. It would, then, yeah, it would be no change. Correct. No change at all. Right. So then I guess we've been around the table except for me. So just to recap, I think, Councilor Ward Russell, you're advocating for staying at the 2024 rates. I think I heard the same thing from Councilor Land and Councilor Jonah. Councilor Elderkin, what? Are you still thinking, or I can't? Still thinking, and Councilor Coe. So
No, I would say we stay with the same rates.
okay. And so already there's a majority there.
I do think for the interest of time, it's probably beneficial for this year just to stay at the same rates.
and at 3 and 2,
Right.
And say that again.
3 villages and 2 LSD rates.
Correct. Well, we can go to, really, it's the rates of last year, which were incorrectly shown on the council proposal. But just to recap what those are. Here, I'll tell you here, the rates are 15669 for Alma Village. Yeah, okay, there, yeah. Right, those are the rates there.
So if we're choosing to go this route, then some of these rates here need to be increased to match last year's, the LSD areas.
She just fixed them.
Yeah, that's what's highlighted.
Okay.
So what I would suggest we do is let's hold this thought as that's our tentative decision to hold the rates. Because it's the next step, right? It is now, we've got to make the numbers work for the treasurer under the shared and local columns. And we probably need to do some cuts, right?
Yes, you would have to accept all cuts that are there.
Well, no, we don't have to accept all those. We can maybe
would-
try and find a different
You would
array
have,
of cuts.
you would have to have the cut of that amount.
Yes,
So
so
we have 70,000 put back in, plus a little bit from the LSD areas.
what I think it's time to really get to the bottom of exactly how much cuts we need. So remember if you use last year's rates and this year's tax base for each of the different subunits, I conclude, and can you confirm if you have the same number? I conclude that the warrant that would be raised would be 5,560,653. That would be,
Just read the number.
that's this here. So this is the here, the summation. Yeah, you can see the formula there.
If I made you, what's that number again?
Well, I believe if we take last year's tax rates and using the 1.7, we're not changing right now. This is on the premium for non-residential.
Yep.
And we use this year's tax base numbers provided by the province, we get a warrant of $5,560,653.
Correct.
And if we assume, well, that's not an assumption, if we take also an equalization grant 213,527. And we hold for a moment the revenue number that we've seen provided by the treasurer, which we could maybe revisit if necessary, but it makes it a lot easier for now if we just keep, that was the 864,946 number. What you end up with is 6,639,126. You get that?
Yep.
That is the aiming point for expenditures, except for the fact that maybe there's some adjustment required because of the local versus shared. Do we agree on that?
Yes.
So 6,639,126 is roughly our aiming point. The numbers that were provided, well, I don't even know where to start on this. You know, Councilor was through me, but we provided numbers to you on the other day, and then you've tweaked them here. I think it's time to just go through this list and tweak. If we could create a new, because I wouldn't want to ruin your spreadsheet. If you can just cut and paste your list of cuts and then put them on a different sheet, and then let's play with that.
I just have the, on the screen.
Can you make that just a tad bit bigger?
See if I can-
Do you guys agree with this proposal, having this approach?
Because your math looks like you've got 83,000. If you take your,
Well, it's just like,
but I mean, I know you got,
some are shared,
Yeah.
local, and it's not as easy as just plugging it in. And where we're keeping it separate is completely separate. I don't really know how to approach it on the fly, because there's gonna be areas where village, it would affect.
Yeah, why I think this might be useful, going through this at least once quickly, is I think there's some things that I believe council thinks there's absolutely no way. And there are other areas that we believe that there is opportunities for savings that for some reason you're pushing back on, and we need to find out exactly why. Because it is, if we can kind of collapse to what we at least agree are possibles, then we can start to.
Yeah, and I can go through them one by one.
Yeah.
If I have your permission.
Well, no, because you're missing even a row. Because for some reason, you didn't believe in the concept that by the fact that we're missing a body at council for a third of the year, meaning the by-election's not until May, there's a body missing at the council table that is slippage. It's salary that would have been paid that's not going to be paid. Now you can argue, well, which salary is it? Is it a mayor's salary, a deputy mayor's salary, or a councillor's salary? At the minimum, it's a councillor's salary. So I'm suggesting that we use a councillor's salary, which is 20 grand plus some CPP, call it 21 because we have a third of it, 7,000 bucks. Did you not see that there's a 7,000 saving there?
I don't disagree with that. What I caution on is that then now your budget for 2025 looks like this. And next year at this time, when you're trying to pass next year's budget, you're going to have to increase it by that. And the slippage still needs to sit there as salary dollars for 2026. So that means that if you can't meet the tax rate in 2026, you're going to have to increase it twice as much because you've taken $7,000 out of the budget.
Hey, but that applies to so many things. So many expenses are, to me, it's some years there's expenses and some years there isn't.
But from an accounting point of view, I think I said that in my email, I can absolutely see the importance when you're going back and making comparisons from last year to this year and this year to next year. You're not comparing apples to apples because we've cut that completely out of the budget. So I do understand there is a savings there, which can be used for different reasons. It's not tied into that line item.
No.
But I think for comparison wise, I do see the point that they're trying to make on the accounting side. That comparison wise, you are going to have to put it all back in again next year. So the budget this year that we're trying to remain the same should include is if everybody was around the table. That at the end of the day, we're going into 2025, assuming everybody's at the round of the table. We know now they're not, but if we hadn't did this in November, it would have been in the budget.
I would say, I don't see how this is any different than the truck that we're prepared to slide out, say, because we're saying we're not gonna buy it until June. To me, there's no difference.
Because the truck is moving. We could get to June and not be able to buy the truck, but we're not gonna get to June and not be able to pay a mayor.
I have a question, right? So we're gonna go with deputy mayor's salary going to the mayor's salary?
That would be my recommendation. If somebody's acting in a position, they should be paid to be acting in that position.
That this will be for us to decide, but I tend to agree, especially if you're acting for, I believe if you're acting for a day or 3 days or a week even, I don't actually espouse that. That wasn't how it worked in the federal government that I worked in. But if you're acting for a period of time, like months, like we have, I think that's probably the
Okay,
fair
I
way.
just want clarification.
Yeah,
But if they're so concerned, administration, about that number in the mayor's section for next year, we'll take it somewhere else out of the budget. That's all you're gonna do, shuffle numbers around. As long as that bottom number matches what we want,
okay.
you have to shuffle.
But in comparison, when you're creating budgets and reviewing from year to year, it's nice to view apples to apples. The other numbers all change every year.
Yeah.
What we put
I'm
in
okay with
paving
that.
this year is not gonna be what we put in paving next year. So I do see the importance from the accounting point of view to keeping that in there and taking it from somewhere else.
Well, where are you gonna take it from? Just to hold it, or, yeah, a suggestion?
So my suggestion would be to leave it in, but we can address the slippage for share items that are on the costs, like on the recommendation list that you want to keep in. So say you want to keep $7,000 of one of the items here that's shared, we can highlight it as that it's.
Okay,
it's
okay,
tied in
okay,
the
that's
budget.
fine. All right, that's-
But we can have a
Okay.
resolution of council later on that slippage.
Okay,
so we can
okay,
take
to me,
it
it's one and the
that way.
same, but if it keeps the accounting people better, okay.
So we're saying no to this first one.
No, you're leaving it.
Yeah, I think you're leaving it.
Yeah, at least,
Oh, that's the next one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So would you like me to start deputy mayor?
well, personally, I can live with the first 6 myself, they're all okay, they're acceptable.
Yep.
Anybody, and some people speak up if you don't like something.
I'm not understanding what the 2.1.2.1.2 are. Because mine is 500 shares.
Oh, that's for savings we cut out of the CAO's expenses.
Oh, on administration other, okay, thank you.
But the next one, I think there's alarm bells going off on the number of people. Certainly me.
Can we just back up one thing? I
Yeah.
just want to double check, treasurer, with regards to the clerk personnel. Don't believe the number is right in based on the payroll spreadsheet, the number is not the same in the payroll spreadsheet as it was in the expenditures. So there should be another reduction there. So just keep that one highlighted. You can look at that one at a later date though.
Deputy Mayor Ryan, I have permission to explain each one.
Well, yeah, I think speaking up at this point, we gotta,
Okay, just so you understand, I was digging at the bottom of the barrel trying to find these. So these are just recommendations. You don't have to take them, But this is what I went through line, details I had for each line to try to find
Yeah, good.
pennies,
Okay.
to basically make cuts. So,
What I would say is if you see something now that you now actually believe is ill-advised, please speak up. Like, let's get rid of it. If you're not supporting it, we don't want.
The whole list.
there's a good chunk of the list, but,
Okay, well, you
so,
look at it that way.
I know there hasn't been no decision on what will happen with the Alma office. This is basically just me trying to find savings. So what I did was I removed $5,000 from our repair reserve that's in the budget of $15,000. So that would leave us $10,000 for any repairs that are required at our village office buildings. And a part of that is also completely shutting down the Alma office. That means shutting off the water, shutting off power, phones, heating, everything, to eliminate those costs.
Yeah, so as I saw a comment from Councillor Eldekin that this is maybe premature in the sense that we haven't had this discussion. I think for the benefit of trying to get an approved budget tonight, this is not a good time to be having this discussion. It's an important discussion, but this is not a good time to do it.
Well, this is just,
Yeah, I know. So I would,
it's gotta, if it's not.
I think you
here,
should
it's
just
gotta-
remove all this, at least, if we need to come back to it, but hopefully we don't need to go there.
Okay, I'll bring it over to another line to keep it separate.
Just to clarify, we do need to go there.
Yeah, that's
Eventually.
tonight.
Probably not tonight.
That's the
Yeah.
point. That's what.
Are you okay with removing $5,000 from the $10,000 repair budget?
Not even really. I'm not. Are you? Let's come back here if we need to. Let's see what we can get here.
Let's come back to it.
Okay, I'll cut it off that side, for now. So legal fees, I'll put it back down to what it was last year. For savings, we do have some, accrued expense, or no, deferred revenue, I should call it, that we received from local government for, legal expenses. So some of the, what we will see in the coming year, will be covered under that.
Okay.
So for the next line, so decreases with changes of salary affects work safe. So that seen a decrease in this line. Also, I decreased more out of the small pot we have there for promotions and branding.
No, just for the, sorry. If we leave in the item that you have red highlight, is that gonna defeat the purpose for getting maybe a calculated new number?
I have it, I'm keeping track of it. in
Oh, okay,
Excel.
okay.
This is just, this is for Lynn.
This is a Word document. It's not calculating anything on.
Oh, well, we're gonna wanna calculate that.
That's what I'm doing.
Oh, okay, you're doing it. Okay.
Yeah, as I go through.
So you made it to go to 0 for right now, the office building?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I've moved it to a different
Yeah,
line.
okay.
Yeah.
I'd say keep going slowly and people just speak up if there's something you don't like.
Okay, and I'll continue going unless I
Yeah,
see
yeah.
raised hands?
Yeah.
Okay. So, accounting personnel, that's just decreasing the cost of living, back to the original, proposal. So, purchasing, this is just from taking out all these costs, it decreases what we have to pay in net HSD.
Hmm.
So that's where that number come from. It was recommended, by Deputy Mayor to eliminate another $2,000 from conventions and delegations down to $5,000. I've removed 5,000 further from grants and other. I did keep in mind, the not-for-profits that have depended on these funds from year to year from the former villages. So that has been kept in mind for that line.
So that's why maybe leave it. But didn't we originally propose to leave it?
You dropped it down to 10,000 at the first budget meeting, correct?
No, we went from
No, well, but
35 to 25.
Yeah, and I just took it from 25 to 20, and that's still what these other non-for-profits depend on.
Yeah, so let's scratch this meeting. Let's leave it at 25 for now and see if we can make it work.
Okay. All right. I removed disaster funds for EMO. It's not favorable, but we still have 50,000 in an operating reserve after this budget. So there is funds available if we were to have a disaster.
Okay, so it's mostly a question here, because in the original budget proposal document from the November meeting, in here, there's a number of things. One was the testing of the generators.
Yeah.
And it's a bit vague there. I'm hoping, and I know we have our director of operations here, I'm hoping the idea is that all of the generators are included there. And in my view, this is a very important expense and one we've already, got caught with our pants down at the beginning of Fundy Albert. So I'm hoping what's remaining, if you take out the 20, is still all the things. There's the honorarium.
Yep, those are all still included. Yeah, this is
Okay.
just,
That was just literally.
20,000 was just basically disaster funds. Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody was good?
Yeah.
$17,583. This is from changing to the original cost of living increase. And also changing the hiring of the superintendent date to the 1st of April. Jinkies. So the next one's the same. This is the change in the cost of living. For general equipment, I budget this because for each piece of fleet that we have, I keep track in projects within our accounting program. So I've taken basically what we've spent this year on each vehicle, and I've added a cost of living increase. So even after that, this is an extra funds that I like to keep there in case a motor was to go in a truck or a motor. Oh, that'll be a different line. You'll get it, Linda.
So if I may, so on that line, if we have a vehicle that we do sell, that money goes back into that account?
It very well could. It's up to council's discretion. My recommendation would be to trade it in on your new one to lower the costs and borrowing in the long run. So you would save money in the long run.
Okay, just either or.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
But that's where it could show up.
yep, it's completely at council's discretion.
Knowing that everything is aging and falling apart, maybe just go with -5 instead of. What do you guys think?
Just leave it as
I
is
leave
for
it
now.
as
Leave it as it is?
Yeah.
Okay, leave it as it
I wouldn't
is.
question it.
So I removed, I think we had around 180 just for doing asphalt padding. So I'm taking an additional 20,000 out of that. This allows me to, where some LSDs had to be taken up on the village side, I had to lower the village costs. So this is not so much where I want to cut, but this is somewhere that had a fit. Any questions?
Well, this is a bit of a sore point because there's at least 2 villages that never got any asphalt done last year.
But this doesn't even touch, like we are.
So
I'll let
obviously
Ian
when we
speak to
spoke
it.
about the start of the budget deliberation, said the figure that we allocated to patching, padding and all that, so my voice is going, was not enough to really maintain the roads to a point where we can stop them from degrading.
Mhm.
Reducing this will put us in a position where we cannot stop the roads from degrading.
Yeah, so I don't think it's a good idea. I would go to. So just, if I understand correctly, Ian, you're not advocating for this, right? No, I don't think I am.
I think the savings you make now on this
Yeah,
will
yeah.
increase the cost.
Yeah, I tend to agree. So I vote we go to 0 here.
So the general consensus is to cut it.
Meaning we're not gonna cut it. Yeah, right.
Sidewalks, there's recommendation of deputy mayor to cut this in half to $5,000. Beautification, I've removed a portion of the Christmas light budget where we are hoping to start doing pole lights in Riverside, Albert.
We're trying to have equal, we see already that the villages are struggling to see themselves as being treated equal, and yet we're trying to go there with the money. This, I would advocate that this be scratched.
Me as well.
What about Councillor Eldigan from,
Yeah, I mean, if I have to choose between a pole light and patching, I'm picking patching.
okay, but that's a different question. Let's,
Okay, so we're gonna leave
Zero.
zero. Okay, thank you. All right, tree removal. So I budgeted based on what we paid in 2023 to remove a big dangerous tree that was dead and has capacity to cause damage, and it was on our land. So I've cut that from 3 trees to 2 trees that we could possibly cut down. I've removed not weed control completely.
okay, well, hang on. So we got a problem there because it's not shared first off.
The last proposal, from the understanding what I read, was that it was shared. It was to continue work in Elma, but to also to start working on watershed areas, which takes up all parts of the village. from
Yeah,
what I-
that's if he got his extra.
That's just how.
But that's incorrect. It's local,
Okay,
okay? And so here's my position on this. Okay, guys, and council members. If we end up with maintaining the tax rates the same, which as you know, Alma is quite a bit higher, I am not supportive of this because I want this in Alma, and we are all, I'm viewing that we're paying more than enough for it. If we collapse the tax rates, I'm okay. Because we're collapsing it where the villages are all the same. And this, so I would say, so I will agree to delete this item, meaning we wouldn't have no knotweed if we have common tax rates for the villages. If Alma is going to be above, like it is in 2024, I want this here. Okay.
so I'll just, I marked it as Alma because Alma has a portion of extra revenue they're producing. So I'll mark it as Alma. Next one is just another salaries. So for the Tourist Bureau, I've removed the installation of the mini split that we are proposing to put into to create a better heating and air conditioning source for the building. So I've removed $9,000 from tourist camps, parks, and et cetera. This is no longer replacing the roofs on the picnic shelters and the Riverside Albert trails, and removing bench replacement budget.
So this is a shared expense,
Correct.
but it's all cuts that are coming in one area.
Because that's all that work gets done in those tourist camps.
What's that?
And under tourist camps, it's just our tourist camps that are in the former village of Riverside Albert limits. So the bench replacement was for Alma.
Right, so there is still a budget there.
Yeah, we are still, I did keep in the portion for Public Works would like to put in inside walls inside our outhouses and to have them cleaned up a little bit. This would allow them for easier cleaning.
I don't like this myself. I would prefer that this be deleted. Meaning, I don't want this cut.
Okay.
I don't know, are you, Councillor Eldigan, do you want this cut?
No, I don't want any cuts, to be honest, but again, if it comes down to.
Well, we don't yet know what the bottom line is.
Correct.
Okay,
So knock it down to 0 just for.
let's knock it down to 0.
No, snap, wrong one. Right. Swimming pools, beaches, and marinas. This is Supposed to be other, not personnel. This is removing 5,000 from our $25,000 budget for repairs and just hopes that we have enough to cover. Skating rinks and arenas personnel for same as the others. And parks and playgrounds personnel.
Yeah, parks and playgrounds personally, yeah, this one.
This is removing the summer public works staff that we're kind of tentatively working with our engineers to create an infrastructure mapping.
Aren't these usually to get funding for these positions partly?
We applied, but we don't have no definite answers.
No,
So if we don't have the funds, if we don't get the funding, we can't do the position.
my gut feeling is to also nix this.
This is an important project that we wanted to get done this
Yeah.
summer, where we can map out the infrastructure. And doing it with a student is the best way to do it. But again, we always put in the full salary in the budget because we're never sure if we're gonna get the Canada grant or whatever there's the seeds or seed program, whichever one it is. So we would like to see this thing.
I'd like to see it stay.
Agreed.
Parks and playgrounds or other. So within that line, I kept $12,000 to maintain trails that are within the borders of former village of Hillsborough. So it was 12,000 and cutting out 3,000 puts it down to 9. So that still gives money, if council so choose, to give to CCT to maintain all our trails that we own, plus an additional $3,000 to address any broken bridges or items within the trail.
Which number is that, sorry?
2.7, 0.1, 0.8, 0.9.
On the 44.
And there was a question from Councillor Elderkin about the White Rock. Is the White Rock maintenance still,
She just said, yeah, the 6,000.
oh, did I miss that? I'm sorry.
You didn't,
I was sorry.
it's in there, but it doesn't include the insurance, right?
No.
We've taken the insurance out, so that answers.
We wouldn't be under that one anyway.
No, I think we're
Hoping to get it under the
the same.
blanket policy.
Yeah. So culture, buildings, facilities, others is removal of on-site garbage on-site garbage bin after January. This is something kind of we've been talking about because it's not just,
It's an Alma.
yeah, it's not just our renters that seem to be using it. It seems to be a collective people that feel it's a garbage bin for everyone. So the Ian, did you want to speak
Yeah,
to
I
it?
can do it.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
yours.
so obviously I done before with the CAO and seen locals just using it as an extra bin to put their own garbage. Therefore, we're putting the bill of somebody that doesn't want to drive up to Moncton to drop it off the dump. I don't feel that's something we should do. In a previous job, I spent a lot of time dealing with stuff like this, and it just breaks me. The impact it's going to have on us on the operations side, I think is very minimal. We're down there most days anyway, especially in the summer. We're down there moving garbage. We can just throw it in the back of the truck, bring it back to Hillsborough and stick it in the dumpster we've got here. It also will hopefully, in theory, help tidy up that area as well. Because even if we lock the bin, there's a lot of people who just walk up and dump bags of garbage next to it. If there's not a bin at all, it deters that a bit. I'm not saying there won't be any garbage drop, but it deters it, ties up the space, saves us some money. We just have to drive up with a few bags of garbage in our truck.
My only comment to that is I'm supportive of trying that, because we don't have really much to lose by trying. What I do know in the past is when there wasn't that garbage dumpster, either the garbage is in a place it shouldn't be, or the businesses who do have dumpsters and the wharf that has dumpsters, we start to get complaints because they're dumb. So to me, if we want to try it, you know what I mean? We got nothing to lose really, unless there's a big fee to cancel for a while, and then if it's not working and we have real problems, start it up again.
I think there's definitely some conversation to be had with local businesses.
Yeah, okay.
If that's their own personal dumpster that they're paying for,
Yeah.
as a business, it's up to them to secure that dumpster, have the correct signage and everything.
Yeah, that's right.
And perhaps on our part, we can look at bylaw enforcement and start trying to find
Okay.
people, especially if it's local residents just dumping in our parking lot, and we can identify them. We should look at possibly finding them.
Because I don't believe in the other two former villages, there's a community dumpster.
No.
No, because, you know, Alma is a tourist town and had a problem, but I'm willing to try.
Yeah.
So
We can increase the number of normal garbage cans around for
yeah,
tourists.
and keep emptying them if,
Exactly, and what we're trying to do is
Yeah.
avoid it being a local dump site for people that don't want to drive up to
Yeah.
the dump in Munton.
you know, if there's any extra money for garbage on Dennis Beach, right? But it's another day.
You're off, Tom. Sorry, Jim.
Sorry.
So that answers one of my questions that I had emailed as well about the dumpster and who uses it.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
With that office being closed, like with nothing in that office, it's really just the businesses that are using that dumpster anyways.
We can communicate with them to organise a day that we collect their garbage.
Yeah. I must say, this one here alarmed me. And why it alarmed me is we didn't propose this. So it's got me thinking, you know, this was originally in the budget proposal. When I saw repairs originally, and I actually did have an opportunity to speak with the people from the museum. Well, actually, we're here now, right? They told me about a repair. And so the council, I don't think none of us ever advocated that this be removed. So it started to, like, is this necessary repair or not?
I don't have enough information to really, like, it's
This is-
whether it qualifies as a capital expense, or is it just an operating? So if it's a capital repair, like if this is a repair that we're doing to the building and it's lasting up to, 5 to 20 years, I can use it as capital. And if it becomes capital, then there's grant funding available for this, and it would be less of a cost, and I can use additional. However, it all depends on getting more information of what this foundation repair actually needs.
Okay.
So
And
if
that's
you
your
recall,
job here.
our director of operations in the summer came to council with that the Mount Foundation, there was an issue with the foundation. There was a quote that was received to fix it. It wasn't in the budget in 2024. A humidifier was put in the basement to get rid of extra humidity, and a repair was done to the sewage line, thinking that that was contributing in some way. It wasn't the sewage line. It is a foundation issue. There was a temporary fix put in place, and it was supposed to be fixed in 2025. So hoping that we can get a grant is one thing, and if we don't get a grant, we still have a foundation problem that's now gone on for 2 years instead of 1.
Yeah. So,
But you might be able to go through capital reserve to fix it.
It all depends on if it has to be a capital replacement. It can't just be a patch that only has a life of 2 years.
$20,000 to me is probably long-term fix than a.
In some ways you think they would, but auditors tell me different.
Can you go as a historic money? Like,
Yeah, there is historic money that Kim has found. So it's just working with the foundation here, not the foundation itself, but the people that work here
Yeah.
and help operate the building. It's working with them but it's determining to make it a capital repair to get the money. It has to be capital.
Okay.
So it depends. If this amount is it's a capital repair, they may accept it. But if it's not, it may be more than this.
So basically what we're hearing is an assessment has to be done before we can move forward either way,
Correct.
right? So just kind of,
Leave it as is.
yes,
Leave it as is.
yes,
and we're saying leave the repair in or leave the cut?
leave the cuts.
Okay.
And the next two are just, so when we don't purchase the truck right at the ball, 1st of January, I think a portion of this actually is still from the culvert repair. So when we go to, it'd be the fall, we go for a debenture, we may only see an interest payment. So I've been able to remove all principal payments and a portion of short-term or long-term interest debt. So when you go for a debenture, it's either spring or fall, and we won't be going for spring, it'll be fall. So it'll just, it'd be an interest payment that we're gonna see. So that's why those are cut.
These amounts, I don't know if you've seen the question I had asked. So this here says it's the purchase date of a 3-ton truck after June, so 6 months. So when I average that expense over 6 months, it's $5,700 a month, provided we buy this truck in June and pay on it.
So like there's, and also another line is for short-term interest for capital projects. So for this, we would be applying, with our ministerial order, we go to the bank, get the money, and when the debenture sale comes in the fall, we'd sell it for a debenture.
Right.
So it's not,
I get what
we
you're saying, but I
only
don't
make
see, are
interest
we
payments.
cutting,
We only, sorry.
sorry, no, are we cutting? It seems like a lot.
There's 32,475 includes an interest payment on the truck and on the culvert. So
That's
it's not
not
just the
budget.
truck that's in that amount.
Okay,
Yeah. So when you start those two later on, and with a debenture, I'm not sure, and maybe new kind of lingo for somebody is still, we only have 2 interest payments a year and 1 principal payment. And it all depends on the time of year that the debenture, it goes to the debenture sale.
so this principal installment, is that for the culvert or for the truck?
Believe it was for both, but it's been a while since I think I've taken the culvert one out already, so I believe the principal would be for the truck. Still truck, we would only take it for 5 years.
Thank you for clarifying.
No problem.
So I think it is, now isn't it time for the drum roll?
Just wanted to highlight on that last one there about delaying the truck till June. There is a slight risk there, like the one wheel is on its last legs. It towed the Bobcat on the trailer up from Alma the other day. The guy struggled to hit 50 kilometers an hour. It's almost dead. So when we start putting around the mini excavator and trying to haul dirt and gravel around with it, and we start looking at ditching and doing culvert work, it may not survive till
Okay, so
June.
maybe that's,
So the risk is just be aware that if we don't get this truck till June, a lot of that work may not happen until later on in the summer.
yeah, well, that maybe sounds like trouble waiting to happen.
Do you have to order a new truck or are they sitting on the lots?
It depends what you want, isn't it?
Yeah, because
That's gotta be the question.
I was talking with someone that works in, like commercial trucks. And he said there's a pile at Taylor Ford right now that they're trying to give away.
But will it fit what we're looking for? That's the question, right?
Yeah.
What they have might not fit what we're looking
I
for.
think it,
I think there's a portion of, if you've got it this time of year, there is end of year stock that dealers may be trying to get rid of. Whereas in the summer, you're probably looking at getting new stock. So
Is this replacing our current garbage truck?
no, this would be the gold truck from Hillsborough.
Right, so the garbage truck can't participate, can't haul the mini excavators
It's not
because,
quite
No, it doesn't have the capacity to haul it,
Don't have the tonnage.
unfortunately.
but okay. I was just thinking that, because it's not gonna be utilized for garbage after January.
The registration number's not high enough. That's why.
Yeah,
I'm personally not advocating the cut if we're setting ourselves up for
Okay.
a likely failure.
it's a risk. It may happen, it may not.
Yeah, I know, but
We might be slowly moving around.
But is there-
territories, but
is there any savings to be made by, under the banner of slippage or not?
So we know
What
in
if-
January and we're not buying it tomorrow.
yeah.
What if you get a trade-in back?
When's the inspection done on that truck? You know,
I don't know off the top of my head.
I want to say our equipment operator was still here. So I want to say it was the summertime.
I know.
Because it has to go to review truck repair to get safety.
I reviewed all the safety dates end of last year, and there's only one that is due in the next 3-4 months. So
What if you
That could be. when, if we keep it and take it in, you might get a $4,000 or $5,000 brakes and everything. It can
I get it.
go up pretty quick, so you should do. leave that there, I think, on the truck for,
I'm sorry, I'm paying.
Meaning not take it as a, don't cut it out, meaning.
don't cut it out because, now, it may pass, but from what you're saying, it's not in very good shape. And, you know, I'm sure a brake job on that truck would be $3,000 to $4,000 easy. And whatever.
And we know we're gonna gain our $7,000 of slippage from the missing body here, right? So what is the drum roll? What's, meaning, so what's gonna spit out here now is the expenditures. We already know all our money's coming in.
So
We got that number, right? That's 6,639,126.
may I clarify something,
Okay,
Mr. Mayor?
yeah.
What I could do is leave the interest on long-term debt, but it essentially be used on short-term, so we could purchase the truck a couple of months earlier, just not sell it for debenture till fall. And I could remove principal installments, is that?
Yeah, let's not have that cut. The cut for trucks, let's try and work our magic without that one. You agree with that, Councillor Elvican? Yeah. Still waiting for the big drum roll there.
So it takes it down to 129.31, so.
Well, hang on, but see, isn't it this number here? This is the number we're looking at. That tab, expenditure tab.
What's two?
You haven't been updating this spreadsheet.
No, I've been doing separate
Okay. So you can
as responsible.
take it off something. I'm not sure, I've lost track. Here, you know, the one we gave you the other day, which had some of the cuts, was the 6,700,000 one.
That's the question. Isn't it an appropriate time to maybe take a break and allow the
Yeah,
treasurer
recess.
to do what she needs to do?
Yeah, good idea. Let's take a 10-minute recess and if you guys need longer in the end, we just extend. Okay? Okay.
I'll make a motion to take,
Okay, thank you.
to take a 10-minute recess.
Those in favor, we lost one, but it's a bit more relaxed here tonight, only under necessity. Okay, those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Seconded. Go back to.
I will make a motion to return back into our regular session.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder? All those in favor of saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed unanimously. Thank you. So just to recap what we've done so far, I think it's been, personally, I believe we're doing good. We sort of had a consensus about a tax rate aiming point, which is unchanged. Like that's our aiming point, was to unchanged tax rates from 2024. So then we embarked upon a cutting exercise because it's necessary by making the tax rate, gentlemen, focus though.
Yep.
By making that, I'm just recapping where we're at, by making the tax rates at least notionally the same. It's easy for us to calculate our warrant. We know the revenue, we know the grant, so we know our aiming point. The aiming point is actually the expenditure tab that had been provided by the treasurer to us, which includes $201,000 in cuts, correct?
Yes.
Oh, we just said we didn't want some of those cuts. So we just did our exercise about which of the 201 actually do we want to get rid of. And in fact, the treasurer she did do the drum roll, And she concludes we actually, there's 120,000 that we don't need to cut. So we are cutting 80 roughly, right? Correct me if I remember.
Yes.
So we believe we've still found 80,000 in cuts. Okay? So what that means, oh, no signal.
Oh, helps me push it on the line, sorry.
Hmm? So just to recap, this is, the proposal we have is unchanged tax rates for everybody. Equals all this warrant, which remember the number is, just to recap, it's that totals 5,560,653 bucks. We add the 213, we add our revenue, and we get a 6,639,126 aiming point. We subtract the expenditures, which is 6,556, which is in assuming 120,000 cuts, the 210,000 or 201,000 cuts. But we just decided we didn't want some of those cuts. And so the number of the cuts that we just decided we didn't need was 80.
Yep.
We're exactly right there.
Show sheet 2.
So what, this is over here. Those were the cuts that we did, the total of 210 in this spreadsheet. These are the ones we just did together, and it's only 120. The difference is 80. We are there. Within $3,000.
Yep.
But
Go back.
it's within, we're within $3,000, right? This is slippage from the body missing at the table. But the treasurer wants to alert you to something, which I also want to alert you to, because I'm from Alma, where we have the highest tax rate. So the treasurer is showing that if we do keep the tax rates as last year, Alma's over contributing. This is over what it should be theoretically. So who's over contributing is Hillsborough Village is over contributing by 18,000. Alma's at 85. Riverside Albert is at 11. And who we're benefiting is Ward 5. This is not unlike last year and the year before. Right. And you know, I can compare this. I can show you that these, like I buy these numbers. How I buy these numbers, meaning I believe them to be true just by looking at them. Because you know how Alma is at 15669 and the two villages are at 139 something, call it 1.4, right? Well, we can see it right here. 1.3936, Alma's at 1.566. The difference of that, which is 15 cents, 16 cents, you multiply 16 cents by Alma's tax base and you get 65,000 bucks. No, 73,000. 73,000 bucks that Alma is over contributing. Okay. So if we're going to go with this, what the treasurer is saying is that first off, the villages need to understand that they're over contributing and they got to buy it, like accept that and sell it to their people. And knowing that Hillsborough LSD is, even though they feel hard done by, they're still using the formulas provided by the province on what gets shared and what doesn't, and how it's shared. The way the province has set it up, they're still being subsidized by the rest of us. I understand that their constituents believe that they're paying more and more every year for nothing new that they didn't have before, which is true. It's just that's what we got dealt. Does anybody disagree with that? That's what the province dealt us with amalgamation. explanation.
And my point is, okay, and there's a lot of elderly residents, okay? And what's happening right now, there is a great portion of Ward 5 that is in the Moncton water system. Okay, they're buying that, all that land that they can. And it's taken camps off of it, and they're buying everything they can put there. And I really think that we gotta get somehow some money out of the city of Moncton.
That's a different issue, right?
That, it's, oh,
Yeah,
okay,
but it's,
it's taken away our tax bill. There's, I know about 6 camps in just the last year that they put a bulldozer to it or high hoe and put them down, so we're never get the tax base up because they're doing
yeah,
and you gotta look from the Dawson corner right through to the end of just shy of the 4 corners at and I guess well, it's almost to the bridge. Okay.
okay.
So that's pretty well all, both sides of the road is city of Moncton property.
Okay,
And I imagine, I don't know what the tax, I'm gonna look at some of the tax bills,
right.
but, what I'm saying is 5 is never gonna have the buildings that Lower Coverdale has.
No,
Now, I'm
no, that's
getting, we're getting some more in Lower,
Yes,
but, the big, land issue is if it's kept, at, Woodland, there's hardly any tax revenue on it, so just bringing that up as a point that it's probably gonna end up.
well, I would like to ask a question then to the treasurer and administration, just to make sure that what I'm saying to you people is correct. Is it true that what we've just done actually does work for a budget?
If we just look at the numbers and we don't pay attention to what,
You mean this part, the fact that, which is not, are you agreeing that this is not unlike the last 2 years? Or is it fundamentally different?
it's not unlike the last couple of years, it's just, I'm trying for us to move forward. I like to see us, not muddy the waters, but if council is okay with passing it, knowing that they could have contributed more to a shared than an LSD, has to be an agreement. And I can,
Okay, so, there was a proposal that came, I think you may have seen this, I think so, where Councillor Jonah, this is in the last couple days, wondered what would happen if instead of doing this, which is exactly last year, he proposed adding a cent to everybody but Alma. It was a simple proposal.
Yep.
Add a cent to each one. So I ran that number. What would it do for the revenue? Okay. And that number is $62,032. So meaning it's very easy. We could actually do it here just to prove it. All I did is I just add a cent to each one of these. And you are gonna find that this number goes up by $63,000. Did you record what the other one was?
Oh, I know them by heart
Okay.
now.
I don't know why this is getting worse, but,
Moving, what's getting
well,
worse?
this kept jumping.
Oh, it's because it's changing. It changes the amount of
It
shares.
was going up, but we were making more revenue. But is that up by 63,000? Like I said it would be?
It changes at about 14,000.
It was 6,556,032.
Here's my numbers here. I believe the warrant there was 5560.
If I go back,
It's 5622. The difference is.
if I go back here. It was 83,094. Switching that, it goes to 97,747, so it's about $14,000 difference.
Hang on. So,
So it's 14,000 and something.
but I don't either. I made a mistake. I don't see that. So this is what I've done. This is just showing something here to our CEO. here.
Treasurer, I might add.
Okay, well, I'm running the numbers. And here, look, I've just added a cent
Excuse me.
and I come up with
Well,
5,622
you didn't, because 5799 and 5899, is that not?
added a cent.
Oh, I see what I did.
Here.
Okay, yeah.
I agree with the logic here. But doesn't that mean the former villages are still subsidizing more?
It means we don't have to make cuts,
Right.
right? So now we can start to select where are we making the cuts from. Right now. So maybe the answer is just the LSD areas.
So you bring in an extra,
The fact is if everybody goes up a cent, you make 63,000. If you want to know what it happens, if here, I'll do the one, if you leave the villages unchanged. It's just the LSDs go up by a cent. I'll tell you that right now. $45,000. So what we're seeing, this is what I believe we're seeing. I believe we're seeing that if we keep the tax rate exactly the same, we do the cuts that we did today, which took them from 201,000 cutting to actually only 120 cutting. Remember, we took out some of the cuts. The budget is basically working, give or take $3,000 or something. And but the villages are subsidizing and Alma is the worst. So that works. It's the first time we've actually had a proposal that we knew how that works. So now you can make less cuts.
If we do up by the cent, does the contribution from the villages decrease? Which it should, correctly?
Say that again.
If we do the cent rate across the board, does what the villages are contributing, does that decrease from what we are now? Or does that?
No, you'd be paying a cent more.
We'd be paying a cent more.
So if you want to know how much that costs, here, for instance, are you Hillsborough Village? Well, I'll tell you what it would cost you, your people.
In order for us to decrease, the LFD areas would have to increase the 1 cent.
Well, I'll say, come sure, because everybody goes up, it stays the same.
if the three former villages stay the same and the LSD areas go up 1 cent, then our subsidy goes down. Does that,
And it won't show in here. I'd have to do the math again.
Here, but I can tell you what happens by the village of Hillsborough going up 1 cent is you raise $13,100 more in revenue through your warrant.
Right.
Each person is 1 cent per $100 of assessment. That's, oh, you had some of those numbers for what it means to a $300,000 house and such. So for instance, a $300,000 house or property, not a house, but you know what I mean, 300,000 divided by 100, 3,000 times 0.01
Actually,
is $30. It's $30 per $300,000 assessed
Right.
property.
Yeah.
that's according to the government's calculator as well.
Yeah.
It's 30, or it equates to $30 on a $300 house.
What do you guys want to do?
I think this is all like, because we have so much that is still unknown to us. I still think I need to go back to 3 and 2, and the rates are what we had suggested earlier.
But okay, so that's what we're saying. It does work.
Which is, and I understand, that second sheet there, sheet 2 that I think she has there, I understand that. But I mean, that's something that we can work towards, and we can have those discussions over the next 12 months of how do we get there and how do we see those changes. But to do it for 2025, I think I would not suggest that.
Any other thoughts?
processing?
Okay. Do you need a recess to process?
Oh.
No, I'm serious, because
I'm okay with these numbers. They're close, and that's what we've asked for. Over $3,000. That's pretty close. Yeah, I'm okay with what's on there.
I guess where my thought process is, we gotta keep in mind that moving forward, we're not always gonna subsidize this. So at some point, the LSDs are gonna take the hit. And I think we all represent an LSD area here.
Yeah.
And I would sooner personally, for my LSD area, see a 1 cent this year than give them a 5 cent yes next year. That's my thought process. I'd sooner go baby steps than to give nothing. But
How much we're gonna gain to go 1 cent the LSDs?
well, and but we can show that. We were gonna gain around 45,000, I think. That's what I just said, actually, didn't I?
Yeah, so we can probably put about,
which, if according to this, $1 million home well, it doesn't have money increase.
No, a $300,000 assessed property is $30 in your tax bill more. It's already a big tax bill, but
it's about
$30.
$25, I think, for 1 cent on a $25,000 home, so say it's
250,000.
250,000, yes.
No, but
You know what I meant. They probably pay a lot less.
but 1 cent per $100 of assessment is easy.
Yeah.
1 cent times your 300,000 divided by 100 is 1 times 3,000, which is $30.
Not the zeros, I tell you.
So if you own $1 million home, that's an extra $100 on your tax bill.
Yes.
So here's one. If we're towards convergence, but going slow. So we knock the LSDs up 1 cent. Let's knock Alma down 1 cent. Starting to converge, leave the villages the same. Just wondering. Well, isn't the magic number we're looking for is 80, isn't it? That's the
Yeah.
difference. So we still have actually extra money, either that can go to or 98, so you've got 18 extra thousand for something in our
You got
budget.
6 cents. Oh, she's just buying it.
I'm just kind of playing with it for now.
If you left the numbers as is, there's still a surplus there.
Say that again?
If you left the tax rates as is, as of 2024.
Yeah.
With the $120,000.
You're about even.
There's still money there. There's still some money.
No, well, that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing pretty much even. Are you seeing what are you seeing then?
Well, I'm
Heather?
just playing with my own, like, things here, but
He did, they think they said there was a $3,000.
Yeah,
But say, so what I've kind of on the fly, so if we can drop Alma to 1.46, which I know it's not fair that everybody else doesn't get to go down, but I think considering what they pay and that the services are particularly almost the same, I feel it's, in my opinion, it's okay to let them go down and let the LSCs go up 1 cent. And it still leads us to the magic number of 80, and they're not contributing way over compared to everybody else. Just a thought.
So 1 cent in the LSDs contributed that much of a decrease in Alma?
Because it's all,
Yeah, yeah.
well, it's not just Alberta, it's a decrease in Riverside, Alberta and Guilford.
Yeah.
Because we're all over
for the
contributing.
users of the water.
Yeah, no, but I mean the tax rate. She hasn't changed our rate, nor yours.
No, ours would stay the same,
Yes.
but we're not covering as much.
I understand that. I just didn't think there's that much of a decrease, that's all.
Speak up, anybody. We're horse trading and negotiating now to try and find. No, but but we're a lot farther along, right?
Oh, yes.
Because now what we know, we can really play with the scenarios right here, which is just changing our warrant. We sort of converged on the revenue side. And so we have a stable revenue number that we have had for the day, that the 864,000. And we know these last two numbers are all of those expenditures that we basically have all kind of agreed to. That's what the one thing that we did do over the last 5 budget meetings, or how many there are. We've been through all the lines. That is what this number of 6,556 is, as adjusted by the 81, which were the additional cuts today. Yeah.
So if Alma went to 146, how much are they over contributing now? Is that on there?
No, I,
Well, here, I can tell you that here. Yeah. Here's, here, if I'll go one, I can do that right here. And I can say how it is compared to the other villages. 30,000 more.
so before.
Okay, so they'd be at 140, or excuse me, 40 something? Is that where you're at, John?
yeah, so we put them down around 40 because it was a little over 702,000 they were providing with a warrant. Now it's only 654.
No, well, how I can tell you where it's almost $30,000 number comes from. If I take Alma's tax base for this year and multiply it by your tax rate for the 2 villages, like at your rate, it's 625,000 warrant.
Right.
If I instead take the tax base and multiply it by 1.466, you raise 654. These are these numbers right here. And the difference is pretty close to $30,000 more than if we had your rate. And remember, that goes up to, if we put in the 1.5669, it's 77,000 more than if we'd had the other rate. I've been saying, even though the aiming point has to be all the same,
This is a starting.
we're getting there. So I can live with, or believe I can convince the community of closing the gap, but I would have certain demands. For instance, so that my conditions, the kind of thing that I would expect is if we're continuing to have a higher rate, at least significantly, I would say 2025 is not the year to move fireworks out of Alma. It wouldn't be good.
Yeah, but your other villages are paying extra also, John, right? Not quite as high, but they still
No,
are.
you're talking about yours being the same.
Yeah, no, but with that same rate, is there not money from Hillsborough being extra also?
Well, it's extra here. But there's all the villages are,
That's my point.
yeah, but my point is although I believe I can sell higher than the other villages, that would not be a time this year to also pull something out of the community that we've had all the past years. Eventually, if we're all the same,
That's fine.
okay, yeah, see,
I
that's
can
what I'm
always-
talking
And that'd be
about.
the same way with Pullman Hillsborough, something that we've had all the time. And it's something that's.
Yeah.
Stay. The same with Alma.
Yeah.
I understand that, yeah. Absolutely.
So it's 4666, is that what the number is?
4600 is what's up there.
Okay. I couldn't see it. And the LFTs go up a penny. Oh,
The only thing I would add to that is that we've already gone up over the last 2 years, about 30%.
Yeah, probably, eh?
So
So could you find that unpalatable?
I do.
Yeah, okay. Anybody else?
I gave my comments.
You want to say it again, please?
No, my comments was if the LSDs are going to take a huge hit next year, which
Oh, yeah.
I'd sooner see their 1 cent increase this year than give them a 4 cent increase next year. That's
Okay, but
because
let's,
eventually they have to come up.
so, but in terms of trying to find consensus here, so there's kind of 3 bits here, because there's 3 different rates. Well, there's actually 4 different rates. But if Loretta's saying, or Councillor Elderkin is saying, she would rather see a small incremental rise in the LSD areas than a big one later on. So that's where the 1 cent comes from. That's what we're showing here. The Hillsborough and Riverside Albert would remain unchanged from last year in order just to kind of stabilize, knowing that we're actually aiming for something in the future where it's even more blended to just 2 rates. And Alma is going down here in order to not so over contribute, but if I'm looking just for, is it palatable or not? And I'm actually looking for, even though you don't have a vote, to me, ideally, we would be finding a budget for which there's some broad consensus in the community for this year. I'm curious to know if you don't have to say anything, but if you can live with something like this.
Do you want my opinion as an employee or as treasurer, or do you want my opinion as an LSD?
No, I think it would have to be as treasurer because
Treasurer?
otherwise it'd be unfair. With-
Okay, fine. I'm just saying I'm okay with it, but as treasurer, I think this starts to head us in the right direction. But it's hard. This is probably one of the hardest years of being a treasurer to do a budget, because you want to make everybody happy. You want someone's rate to stay low, but you also want to try to bring someone else's lower. So, everybody's the same and we feel for unity as a village, because I find just sitting at the table, I find there's a lot of, I pay more taxes, so I should have more services. And if for someone if I was to be a person looking from the outside, looking in, I could see that point of, if I pay more, I should see more services. But I think this starts to get us where we need to be. I think,
And I know,
and
Councillor, you know what, that just dawned on me, though, a very interesting comparison would be, now, this is sort of one more of the scenario we're playing with here for a minute. Let's look at this compared to the one that you have proposed.
Oh, I don't know that we need to complicate it that much.
It's pretty
I
much
think
what-
we've seen, I think what
The reason why I did it is the similarities are very strong. It's just I would say, Gillian is, call it another year out. What we have on our proposal is actually moving in that direction. It's not there. Because I believe we've been arguing it's too big a change for this year. Isn't that what we've been saying?
It is.
So at least it's aiming in that direction.
we haven't heard from the other LSD areas. So far, only Councillor Ward Russell and myself have weighed in on the 1 cent increase in the LSD areas. So I'd be curious to know, all three of them as well, look at an LSD area. They represent an LSD area.
Or not, I got 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna agree with you, Fred, like, somewhere along the line, it's gonna take a jump, and I know the LSDs have been kicked in the butt over and over and over again. But if we don't move them a touch, they're gonna take a major kick in the butt somewhere along the line. Let me process that a little bit longer, but I understand completely what you're saying.
I got a note, Councillor Jonah. If we kind of look at the other side of when we talked about utility and Hillsborough utility, when Council Land does suggest that a $10 increase per quarter per unit, this is kind of similar to the same thing. It's not necessarily needed, but we know things are coming that are going to cost more, and this is cutting the hit down the line.
But in defense of the LSDs, they don't actually see that they're getting anything new.
Correct.
Like infrastructure is still a ways away, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's not like infrastructure is in our ward per se, right? Like, especially wards 5 and 6 where there is no infrastructure, it's all in wards 1 to 3.
But of course, the answer of why the LSD areas keep going up is because since amalgamation, so 2023, all of a sudden imposed upon all the LSD areas the requirement to pay part of the shared costs of Fundy Alberta, which are huge. That's fire, rink, library, pool. Well, garbage is kind of separate, but
Give it to you.
no, there's no, but hang on, there's more than that. There's all our buildings, like the rec centers, the ball field. You never had to pay, and same with Hartley.
And also, from looking at budgets from the past of the LSDs, and you compare it to what they're paying now, they used to contribute to a $40,000 budget.
Yeah, guys, if you want to chat, just do it out there. Pete, go ahead, sorry.
So in the former LSDs, they contribute to, it was about a $50,000 budget. So that paid for their administration. And that was, I don't remember right off 100%, but I know it was separated amongst the LSDs around Region 7. And then you look at it now, so now they're paying for a local government they never paid for before, and they're paying for administration. That's probably 10 times the cost of what they were paying before. So of course it's going to make an increase in if local government seen this coming, they should have gradually brought them up so it wouldn't have been such a harsh hit as it is. Because it does feel unfair, I can imagine, for someone that lives in an area where their tax rate, you know, went up a quarter. That's quite a bit, and I sympathize, but that's where it stems from, not paying for local government and administration and to a paying for one.
So it's 7:30, we've been here for 3 hours. Do we think, is there a consensus on that?
I'm leaning more towards that all the time, yeah.
But
I know I was stuck on it before, but
For me, at the end of the day, there's no infrastructure in any of the LSD areas. Hope Cape LSD never paid for any infrastructure.
But it contributed actually to the.
Hopewell did, not Hope Cape.
But it was Hopewell LSD.
That includes the Cape, yeah, and then
you're saying you support 1 cent going up,
I do, yes.
but I guess is the most recent comment, but you're sympathetic to the fact that
I
they're
am.
sort of, yeah, they're not really, it's not obvious for any resident there to see what they're really getting.
Correct.
But where does
I'm
that
not
leave you in
disagreeing.
terms of the proposal?
No, I think I'm okay.
Okay,
The
okay.
LSD still.
Yeah, but we're all, in a way, we're all sympathetic, I think, to the LSD situation, yeah. And as you say, most of us at least have an LSD, maybe it's all of us have an LSD that we represent.
We all do.
Is it?
There's nobody here that doesn't represent.
Yeah, okay, we all do. But there's a few more people to hear.
I'm just not sure what that 1% is going to give you. I understand, I'd rather see a 1%.
It's 1 cent, it's not 1%, it's actually more like 2%, almost, right? If you want to know, here, just so we all know. So what the number is 0.588, no, pardon me, 0.5899 divided by 0.5799 is 1.72%. That's the increase on the rate. Remember, the tax bill is much higher than that, the increase because of assessment that we're all faced with.
Which is a total different conversation about the value, the assessment value.
No, but that's what started the first few budget meetings where there was tensions, was that the original proposals were actually for quite a bit more money than these ones. This is considerably lower than it was initially. We could actually see how much lower is it. Councillor Coates, I'm waiting to hear from you.
You heard that's his first of the night. I'm
Okay, to stay the same.
saying the same.
Okay.
I'm just looking at some numbers I put out. From 2023 to 2024, my tax increased $3,104.80. And it'll go up as much this year, because if they put their 10% or 12% on assessment, which, well, I can't put any, but I've only got one vote, so.
No, but yeah, it's just because we're trying to work together. So what actually the tax rate increase that you have faced in Ward 5 since 2023, which at that time it was 0.4661.
Yep.
So here, I'll just do that. So the proposal here is 0.5461. Divide that by the 0.4661.
But
Is a 17.2% tax rate increase
Yeah.
for Ward 5
Uh,
since the beginning of amalgamation.
but you're not taking in the provincial,
Yeah, that's just a tax rate.
that's the tax rate, the local.
Yeah,
But when you add the provincial tax on, it brings it up.
yeah. One of the things that's been said at some of the other meetings though, is what I think we're saying again, is remember that the LSD areas, their property tax rate is actually composed of two major components. There's the component that we see here.
Yep.
But then there's the special levy from the province, which is almost as big.
Yep.
Right? That's the reason why their numbers are so much smaller than the villages, is because of course, all the LSD areas have 0.415 to be added. But that rate, that component hasn't changed in, is it 10 years? 10 years. And this is part of the reason, and this is again why the province has dealt us this. This is part of the reason why we keep seeing this gap between the villages who have never had that bonus that the LSD areas continue to get.
That's not, that's the provincial government, that is not municipal, so.
Well, but that's only partly true, I would say, Councillor Ward Russell, in the sense that the villages are faced with the reality of maintaining roads in the modern world. And we're having to pay for it. And yet the LSD areas are somehow currently being shielded by the province. The provinces,
Yeah.
the
I realize that.
we prefer to keep it the same.
That's my.
Yeah, I got it.
Yes.
Councillor Ward Russell, you want,
Yeah, I mean,
you,
I'm just not sure what it's going, like, I understand that we go into 2026, we're gonna get there, but I think there's still so many unknowns that that's, to take another 2% increase on top of a 17, I think it's even, more for Ward 6. Now you're looking at,
yeah,
a 20% increase within a year.
and just,
You're gonna have
2 years. Right, this is our second, and the first, for the first year of amalgamation, we didn't set
which
much,
one?
right?
For, what, just say, let me check that number. What's the
Was it
number?
20% you said over 2 years?
This is for Coverdale. Yeah, let's just do Coverdale.
Because I believe.
In 2023, Coverdale was 0.5001. What I'm looking at, by the way, is essentially the official spreadsheet from the province that we were using last year. So this year, it was going to be 5899 is the proposal. 5899, yeah. Yeah, so that's 17, it's 18%. Which is, it's wicked. So if we leave it as last year,
17%. No, 16%.
Talking 3
16%. Since the beginning of amalgamation.
But your 1 cent on a $500,000 home is a $50.
They're 7 cents they're 7 cents up. So what's 7 cents on your $300,000 property? Call it. It's easy. It's actually $210.
At the time, I didn't want to do it.
It's $210. Which is, because everything's going up. And remember, that's just the increase because of tax rate. The big increase is the fact that the assessments keep going up and it's killing everybody in a way. But what do we want to do?
But in our defense, I think that was one of the mandates of the new provincial government was to re-look at the assessment process of homes.
Yeah.
So where that unfolds, we do not know either.
So we're getting closer, guys, I think. As the chair, ideally, I'm looking for consensus. I think it would be the best for all of us. I think what we're talking about is either this, the proposal before was this with Alma higher, and the proposal before, there was another proposal which was this, but with everybody, the LSDs back unchanged. So that means the only people unchanged are either Alma or not even Alma. I think there's the 4 options. No change to anybody, which doesn't actually start aiming us, it stabilizes us for the year, but doesn't start moving us in the direction we're aiming. We're telling people we're aiming for. There's another one that everybody goes up 1 cent and Alma didn't change. There's another one where only the LSDs go up 1 cent. That's actually one of the ones. And there's another one where only the LSDs go up 1 cent and Alma actually comes down a bunch only because they've been over contributing. This is where it's hard, guys. It's hard, eh? Do you have a preference, Councillor Ellikin?
I'm okay with the LSDs going up 1%. I see the end game here of being 1 and the tax rates. I can probably live with a 1% deduction for Alma. I couldn't live with a 14-cent deduction for Alma. That's where I'm at. And I just representing my own LSD area, I would like prefer to see them take a small chunk as opposed to a big chunk next year.
So what rate you propose around 1%
1%
decrease?
decrease, no more.
So it's 1.5 cents, right?
1 cent,
Oh, 1 cent from 156 down to 165.
right.
They have one before it starts.
It's a 1 cent decrease.
And the rest
That
they
wasn't
have.
one of the 4 options. just-
No,
no, it's a-
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So let's just, Alma minus 1 cent, the Riverside, Albert and Hillsborough equals, and is zero change.
Right.
And LSD, all the LSDs up.
1 cent.
Okay. Councillor Ward Russell, if you're still thinking, I can go to somebody else, but
Keep going around too.
anybody else?
Okay with that. See what the numbers come out of it. What you can see what it comes out. If that's,
Well, I think we're gonna see they're gonna work. Because we already know that no change for anybody
It works.
works. So, and Alma is not a particularly big contributor, and if we get it's gonna be more than made up for by,
The LSD.
yeah, I'll
I
see.
don't know if we would need to be making these scenarios as we go, because we're not too many of them, but if we could add the numbers, but I'm getting the Councillor Land is,
That's a fair proposal.
I think
I think that's fair, down one and up one. The Ellisons.
I'm good with that.
We're good, yes.
Councillor Coates, I know, doesn't really want to change, but were you prepared to live with 1 cent or not? Put your vote aside. We know that your vote is only the one vote, but what's in your heart there?
I can jump in there for a second. My heart and common sense. Do you know what I mean? My heart is saying no.
No.
Common sense.
Okay, common sense then. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Common sense, yes.
Okay,
Is 1 cent on our local tax probably wouldn't change all that much. But if the province puts theirs in and we're gonna get hit, so, but we can't change the province, right? Right now, but they are saying they're putting out for 2025, they're gonna look at a way of assessment, so.
okay, so that comes to me now. And so Alma's is coming down 0.6%. And it is still, it would still be $11.7 higher than any other village.
Nasty.
Yeah,
The math that you're currently calculating, is it going to affect the decision that we're trying to make here?
no, because I would already be outvoted, right? So the reality of the situation has dawned on me, right? But I've been pretty clear all night. I'm looking for consensus.
Yeah.
And so I'm part of that, right? So I'm just trying to, I think we all need to at least know the deal that we're doing and what it impacts. You know, we've been talking about the impact that it has on each of our areas. But in fact, you know, Alma is significantly affected, right? In the sense that there's the number 11.7% high, even with the 1 cent reduction, it's still 11.7% higher than any other village. And you can say, for what? Right? Like, we're farther away than the library, we're farther away from the pool, we're farther away from the rink.
But those, that didn't happen during amalgamation. That was that way
Oh,
before.
no, what happened? No, but what happened? Yeah, that's right.
So I don't think,
You don't see it as relevant. Okay, that's okay.
Because the rate, what was the rate in 2022?
right.
And
1.5669, yeah, right.
all,
My
I
rate in
know,
2022.
Yeah, right.
I'm a little stubborn at times, but if you look at most of the around these communities, their outside tax have gone up. Like, Shediac put it out,
Okay, so I got an idea. For consensus. And I've sort of talked to some of you already, and I've alluded to it already. I'm prepared to have consensus with, even with my heart. So not only logic, but my heart, with the proposal we've just discussed, with conditions. My conditions are very simple. Like this is I'm speaking on behalf of now Alma Village, because I represent Alma Village as well. The conditions are that for at least 2025, this would not be a good year to pull fireworks out of Alma. Okay, because we're still over contributing by, it's around whatever the number is, I'll tell you the number. It's
Down to 70 something.
big, bunch of money, tens of thousands of dollars. So it would not be a good year to pull fireworks out. That the Alma gazebo that we're already planning on doing, actually, we get done. That the Alma Gardens continue to be maintained. It should be already in the work plan, and we should have already budgeted this, but I want it to be clear that that's dear to the community. And that we did keep the knotweed. So the knotweed, at least for this year, is targeted in Alma. And lastly, that the villages have roughly a common service level. It's important, right? So I don't want to be over contributing in Alma and have lower service level than, and I'm sure you're the same, Councillor Elderkin, right? I know that. So if you would agree to those general conditions, I think we have a deal, a consensus position. And I think, if I understand administration, do you see us trying to move in the direction that you're trying to get us, which in a way, I think we all agree is the place that we're aiming for? It's just taken longer than you guys are hoping, but.
Well, it's not that we hope, it's just, we work in it every day. It's a little bit different than trying to represent people, which I wouldn't want to do, because it's not easy. But I think we're slowly heading in the right direction that we should be heading in, and
Can our chief administrative officer
I
at
do
least?
agree, yep, I
You
do
could
agree.
live
We need
with
to be-
this?
It is difficult maintaining, like, again, Alma Gardens maintained. Well, we have to discuss with our director of operations exactly how many hours that means. So our work plans will definitely outline what the levels of service will be across all, and that is a goal that we have
But
for
you
this
can-
year. So I can agree with
And you
your,
can see that there is and then there's an over contribution happening here that
absolutely.
the community that I represent is prepared to accept.
Just say something though, John.
Yeah.
No, I don't disagree with what you're saying. But your conditions, all we're gonna do is vote. Your conditions don't really mean nothing, right? I
Yeah,
understand what you're talking about, but you're kind of holding something over us at this point that, if, I'll agree to it if I do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
But if we just come to the vote, your conditions really don't matter.
correct. That's right. So it's
I
about,
just
it's
find
about
that
trying
odd,
to.
I don't agree with you, but I just find this a little odd, that's the position that you took on it, that's all.
It's basically, it's under the banner of trying to achieve consensus. And so what would that take, right?
So again, I'm pretty sure where you're coming from. The conditions, I think, have to be flexible. Whilst we haven't got a work plan in place, I've done a lot of work to one. We've got 7 employees that do, say, about 2,000 hours of work a year each. I'm currently on 12,000 hours on the work plan. That only includes 1 hour per area of grass, little area of garden in each community at the moment. We're sitting down to look into that. So while I don't disagree that the gardens must be maintained in hour, if that then leads to a decrease in service from the other ones to ensure that they all get, that they continue to get maintained at that standard they have been, we've got to have that common standard, like you said. So then.
Well, that's right. But we also need to ensure that we're as efficient as we can be. And that in fact, this budget, as we're homing in on the expenditure side, has more resources for Public Works than it's ever had. Even in the number of employees, it's more than it ever was. And the best example is garbage collection. That last year, those resources picked up garbage and it took people, some of your people, and a truck to do it. And this year coming, that, and yet all those resources are still there. So that's like a gift.
I think one thing that's really been highlighted to me when doing the work plan so far is I've spent a lot of time on the water, whereas water is always, and wastewater has always been managed by one person. I'm already at 2,700 hours on water. And that just includes opening the door, checking the dial, and that's it. That does not include having to do any extra work on top of what's already done.
Yeah, that's a whole separate issue though, right? Because it's a whole nother budget.
It's still resources, but yes.
It comes from the same resource pool.
So back to Councillor Jonah though, like, are you not understanding?
Oh, no, I
What
completely understand. I completely understand what you're saying. I just found it was odd that your approach on how it was, like, I want this, I want this, I want this. Well, John, like, you know, for 15 years, Hillsborough was $1.34, okay? And Hillsborough paid for the arena. You did. Hillsborough paid for all this other stuff in the community. Nobody else paid for it, us. Yet, our rate, we managed to keep it at $1.34. Nobody contributed to it. So now I'm looking at, you know, I'm about 6% since amalgamation, and I've got nothing new. Nothing new. So to go back to my constituents and say, well, you're up 6%, but you're not getting anything new. Yeah, I just found it was a little odd how it came across, that's all. But I do agree that you should have, yes, you should have your flower gardens. You should have your gazebo, which has been years being done. But I guess I just didn't like having a gun held to my head saying, you gotta do this for me to agree. Just go to vote.
It's pardon me to say that again?
I said, we could just go to vote and make it happen, right?
Right.
So that's all I'm saying.
But the reason why I did what I did is so at least it's on, you know, that on record, that the community that I represent, that is also struggling to see that we're in the family of Fundy Albert.
And I understand. What
Okay, so you can see, so,
yeah.
and I've shared with you even comments that I received from my community. So the truth is actually, you know, call it in the middle on all of this stuff. This is the huge challenge that we've been faced, right, as Fundy Albert.
Yeah.
In a way that these things that cause tension's not necessarily the right word, but where it's hard to understand our different positions and the people we represent, it's because it doesn't really add up ever, does it?
No.
If I may, we've all been handed an unfair hand, right? Administration's gonna have their hands full to fulfill what you want, John, and I understand that. They also have their hands full to understand what we want and to run as an album, right? There's certain things that all these villages want, and it's basically the cleanliness and the respect that you drive into town, things look nice, right? It's kind of a beautification thing, right? Takes a lot of time. I understand all that, and I think with this budget the way it is, I think they'll be able to do that. I really do. Because there is a little extra money in there. And I think back on administration, I think they're going to be able to hire enough summer people to say, okay, you're doing grass all summer, or you're going to do weeding, or you know what I mean? Put certain people in certain places, and that's their job. That's not for me to say, that's for them to say. But I'm just, but to put the two together, I think we all have wants, and that's fair.
Councilor Coates?
Okay, we've many hours on this budget. And if we all get what we want, we're probably gonna get the province imposing on the budget on us. And I don't know how much we've stretched it last year. And, if we don't get it done tonight.
Yeah, so that's where I was about to go. Just to recap, what I believe is we actually have achieved consensus.
Yeah.
I'm about to go over what that is. So what we need to do, if we do have that, we actually need the resolution to be populated, right? So this will require maybe a short recess for administration, but just to recap let's go back to the tab that essentially is the council recommendation, this one. So let's just confirm that what we have is Alma is down a cent. So it is now what, 15569?
Correct.
Just confirm that. Just let me just check something here. $15569, yeah. The other two villages remain unchanged at 13936. That everyone but Hillsborough LSD goes to 0.5899, up 1 cent. And Hillsborough LSD goes up 1 cent to 0.5461. And that those then produce those warrant numbers, because you need that for the resolution, right? And you also need all of those numbers that are right up in that top corner. So do we have what we need to do the resolution?
Yes.
Do you need 5 minutes or whatever to, no, please speak, yeah.
I just need a consensus of the 6,000 one that we're cutting out of, fully cutting out of the other list. So I can input these into the portal tomorrow morning.
Say that again, please.
For us to go back through the list that we told not to cut, we still need to take out $6,382. Where do you want me to? take
Oh,
that?
geez, it sounds just the same amount as the missing person around the table.
I counted for that, don't worry.
Oh, did you?
Yes,
Oh.
I was trying
But
to,
hang on, wow, is it really sick? Because we actually just raised some money. We raised,
yeah, but I was doing the math at the same time.
no, but hang on, the originally with no increase at all. No change, pardon me, no change at all. We basically, I thought, had the numbers work. And we've just increased the LSDs 1 cent, which is a whole bunch of money.
Yeah, which
And Alma came down, 1 cent, which is actually like.
which brought our amount council to choose to impose where to put the 124,478. So if I go back and I take away but the first cuts we made, which was up to $80,930. And I take away, and then I add in the extra revenue plus the slippage, it still leaves me $6,382 that we have to cut out of that.
Have to cut out or add back in?
At the $6,382 that we can't add back in.
Jillian, so your column in red is 120.
This is column here.
Yeah, but on your first page, it was
There you go.
124. So are we still not? Okay. Go to the council's request or proposal.
Yeah, this is like. This is not a little weird.
That's just money that's not there that we're not.
Excuse me, Deputy, maybe we could take a 5-minute.
We need
Yeah.
Maybe
So-
take a.
Yeah.
Can I make
So-
a motion to take a 10 or 15-minute break?
Yes, so a motion to 15-minute break, 5, well, with it,
I probably could.
Try 10, just to. give
Yeah.
us time to do it.
because we still also need to have them build the resolution. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, that was.
Heather, Jeff,
And what do we agree to? 10?
10 minutes.
10. Okay, thank you. I'd like to bring the council back in session. And so we're not going to rush anybody into
We
anything.
need a motion.
Do we need a motion? Thank you. I take a motion or,
I'll make that motion.
very good. Seconded, okay. All in favor of coming back in session? Say aye. Aye.
Or is that Councilor Zion that seconded?
Okay, so again, don't want to rush anybody into it. I think we're getting ready. So what we're getting ready to do, I believe we have someone who's prepared to read. It's kind of a bit of a formal motion. You've seen most of it. There was a little bit added or is being proposed to be added that's about the missing audit. This is really, I believe, necessary, or I think it's good to protect us because we really shouldn't be approving a budget without it. So I'm ready to accept under the agenda item of, hang on here, of resolution to approve the 2025 general operating budget. Is anybody prepared to make that motion?
Whereas the 2023 audited financial statements for Fundy Albert are not yet available, and whereas council has no choice but to conclude an estimate for the second previous year's surplus/deficit if we are able to approve the budget today, and whereas the treasurer of Fundy Albert is recommending that council include a conservative estimate for the second year previous surplus in the amount of $100,000, and council is prepared to accept this recommendation as prudent. Be it resolved that the sum of $6,680,505 be the total operating budget of the local government, that the sum of $5,602,602.32 be the warrant of the local government for the ensuing year, and that the tax rates for the local government be as listed as follows. Tax Authority 681-0, residential tax rate would be 1.5569, non-residential rate of 2.6467, heavy industrial rate being 2.6467. Tax Authority number 681-1, residential rate 0.5899, non-residential rate 1.0028, heavy industrial rate 1.0028. Tax Authority number 681-2, residential rate 0.5899, non-residential rate 1.0028, heavy industrial rate 1.0028. Tax Authority number 681-3, residential rate 0.5461, non-residential rate of 0.9284, heavy industrial rate 0.9284. Tax Authority 681-4, residential rate 1.3936, non-residential rate 2.3691, heavy industrial rate 2.3691. Tax Authority number 681-5, residential rate 0.5899, non-residential rate 1.0028, heavy industrial rate 1.0028. Tax Authority number 681-6, residential rate 1.3936, non-residential rate 2.3691, and heavy industrial rate 2.3691. Tax Authority number 681-7, residential rate of 0.5899, non-residential rate of 1.0028, and heavy industrial rate of 1.0028.
Is there a seconder on that? Thank you, Councillor Land. Is there any discussion further on?
Good job, Fundy Albert.
Good job. Well, then to put the question to a vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against, nay. The ayes have it unanimously. Thank you. Now we need to, according to the agenda, we need to do the same thing now, or similar thing, for the utility budget. Now, we haven't really discussed at length the utility budget, In fact, we haven't discussed it at all tonight. We did discuss it the other night. I noticed that the treasurer had made a change to the proposed rates for Hillsborough, as was briefly discussed tonight. Is there any other implications to the treasurer? This is a question. Any other implications of what we did tonight with the general operating that would affect anything in the utility budgets? Do we have that resolution ready to go? And if not, do we need a short recess?
In the resolution, I think we're okay. We list the user charges, correct? The user systems and the amount that they're paying.
I think it's very wise to list the rates that are, this may be another, so we can maybe do the resolution and then briefly, at least for the public record, we list what are the rates.
That was a template for what the resolution was last year. So-
Yeah, I
So
noticed
that's
that.
what you did last year, but.
Yeah, we can do it.
Yeah.
I think we're-
So is anybody ready to do that, or we need a short recess just to get ready?
No, I think
We're ready?
Yep.
All right, so under the agenda item of resolution resolution to approve the 2025 utility budget. It's really a single budget, isn't it? It is.
Yep.
Yeah. Is there anybody prepared to make a motion?
Be it resolved that pursuant to subsection 1174 of the Local Governments Act, that the total budget for the, water and wastewater utility for ensuing year would consist of total revenues of $1,335,674 and total expenditures of $1,335,674. Be it further resolved that the system within the Alma would pay, their annual household would be a water service of $780, wastewater disposal service of $730, for a total of $1,510 annually. For users in Hillsborough, water service would be $380, wastewater disposal service of $500, for a total of $880 annually. Riverside Albert Water System, water service of $588, wastewater disposal service of $480, for a total of $1,068 annually per user.
Is there a second on that motion? Councillor Jones. Is there any questions on that? I have maybe one or two, just to be careful, to be clear. The user rates that were included in the utility for the three different utilities, those are per billing unit, right? So if a particular user had more than one billing unit, their actual cost would be multiples of that. And just to confirm the expenditure number, the total expenditure number, I realized I don't see it. Oh, no, or maybe that is the total. Yeah, the total. What was the, just say again the total, please, for the total expenditures?
$1,335,674.
Okay, very good. So if there are any other questions? So all those in favor of the question say aye. Aye. There's none against, then motion passed unanimously. Very good. We have one last agenda, well, two more agenda items actually, but only one real one. And that this was the opportunity for the community to make any statements or ask questions. As I said, I prefer that we keep any statements or questions to the subjects that were addressed in tonight's meeting, but we offer this as a way to engage with the community. If this, is there anybody want to say anything? Ms. McNichol? I'll go first.
I just want to say that it's really refreshing to sit for 4+ hours and listen to the discussion around the table here tonight, because everybody participated. It was very calm and it was good to hear. So
Good.
both from all of you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd have to reiterate that statement, you know, I think that, you know, you guys have a hard job, and I think you guys did a pretty good job of listening to each other's concerns. I think, you know, as a taxpayer to the LSD, am I 100% happy? No, but I was happy watching you guys trying to build consensus and working together to get consensus, right? You know, maybe, you know, with a continued attitude like that, you know, I think that, you know, all LSBs and the villages will eventually come to, you know, a harmony and an agreement. I think that this is probably a good first step towards that. So,
Thank you.
no problem.
Anybody else?
No, yeah, Sean McGrath here. You've heard enough from me before, so I won't keep any longer. I just want to say thank you for tonight and thank you for all your work.
Yeah, you can see it's not easy. So that actually brings us to the last item, which is a closed session, which I believe it will.
So just for the sake of the minutes, we are deferring to the next meeting, the resolution for the temporary bank account signatory and the appointment of the clerk and deputy.
Correct.
And then the closed session.
So in the closed session, is there no need for the closed
No,
session?
that was there just in
Just
case we needed to go into a
placeholder?
session to discuss any HR issues that came from the budget, and there were none, so.
So I would take a motion to adjourn.